year. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Midnight's Edge in the Morning. I am Tom Connors. It is Monday. We are back. We have Andre with us. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Greetings, everyone. I saw a movie this weekend. Look forward to discussing it.
What did you see?
Well, I saw Beetlejuice.
Oh, God. All right. Anyway, we have Paul with us as well. How you doing, Paul?
I'm fine, and I liked it too.
What the fuck is wrong with you people? All right, Culture's here as well. I'm leaving.
Hi, everybody. Okay. Well, anyway, hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm excited. I saw a movie.
Indeed, more of us do, and it's ironic because Tom is I think the single biggest Beetlejuice fan of all of us here, and he's the only one that didn't like the movie. So that is indicative of something. I don't quite know what, but it is indicative of something. I'm sure we'll get into that as we get going here. But we are not, it's not just us here. We also have all of you guys watching. Please smash that like. Let everyone know that we are live. We have a lot of people joining us already. We have Ghost Beetle is here. Fallen Angel De Lynx is here. And Michael Strelitz is here. Empress NM is here, Redosaurus is here, Rumble Hotep, Daryl Brewer, and many, many others. So this is that is cool. Glad to have you all here. We also have a couple of super chats to get us started here. Some on Beetlejuice. We'll save those until we have gone through the discussion. Meanwhile, we have Dr. Longdongler who sent us a super sticker for £1.99. So please, everyone, pound that like button. Let everyone know we are live. Ruby Hoove gifted a membership, and so did Samuel Main, and we thank you both, and I'm sure so does whoever received them. Captain Fandom Nerd has been a member for 38 months. We are glad to have you. Ruby Hoove gifted another membership, so did Kelechioki. Thank you guys, much appreciated. And then we have a couple of super chats as well. And getting us into the first topic here, HyperGyver2 says for $5. While you're all discussing the ghost with the most, I just want to make it clear, I ain't afraid of no ghost, and Bustin makes me feel good. So yeah, speaking of feeling good, how do you think Warner's is feeling after this weekend's box office culture?
Well, I think they're feeling great. I mean, I'm feeling great. Warner's had a lot of big wins. It's one of the things Tom and I agree on. This has been the year of the Zaz, and the Zaz has been doing very, very well. In fact, he's been on a pretty decent streak, not necessarily 100%, but a pretty good winning streak when it comes to films ever since Barbie. But this film, look at this, Beetlejuice, $111 million here domestically, well over the 110 that they kept trying to say it would land at, and over 145 global. It's in a huge number of theaters. They really did play this well with 4,575 theaters. I haven't seen a film open that big in a long time. And $24,762 per theater average. That tells me even more $111 million on an opening weekend on a film that I didn't expect quite even this much. So if I'm Warner Brothers, I'm jumping up and down for joy. Let's take a look at the overall box office. So far, the international box office reporting is 35 million. That number will go up. 146,394,032 dollars in global total. Right now, we have the international number, but we don't have the total domestic. That's the reason why it's a rounded number, but I imagine it will be rounded up. This is a pretty good start for the film. It wasn't a holiday weekend. It was the only mistake that I saw that they made in the windowing. This would have had a huge Labor Day weekend. It wouldn't have been competing with football, but it doesn't look like it had a lot of competition with football if you look at the day-to-day earnings for the film. But man, what a great way to finish. Number one is finish out the summer with an amazing Beetlejuice that we will talk about in detail soon. If you're Disney, though, Andre, I think you're doing pretty well as well. I mean, come on, this thing is stuck around forever. 7 weekends, in release.
Yeah, this is really impressive. Now past 600 million. It's 614 after this weekend. That's pretty impressive for an R-rated movie.
Yeah, and it's doing really well still in 3,400 theaters. Why? Because there's nothing to compete with it. And if you take a look at it, overall, almost at that $1.3 billion mark that I eventually predicted because, well, it exceeded the number I thought it would get because it was R-rated. Boy, was I wrong. I'm happy to say I was wrong. It doesn't bother me that I was wrong. But the fact that people are taking their young children to see an R-rated film with lots of interesting references still flabbergasts me. But hey, if you're willing to, subject your kids to that, well, more power to you, Deadpool and Wolverine. Well done. I think Reagan is the other big surprise coming out of an unknown distributor, Showbiz Direct. Reagan is still hanging in there. Another 5 million this weekend. And look, it's only in 2,700 theaters. It just doesn't seem to be, doing much. It did gain 16 theaters this weekend, but
I was about to say, because there's like a couple of interesting things there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go, please.
Yeah. Last week, it was at 4th. This week, it has jumped up to 3rd, which is pretty cool. And it only has a 32% drop. Now, granted, it has increased, so you kind of maybe would expect that it wouldn't increase to wouldn't sink too much at all, but still, I mean, that's a very impressive hold.
Well, and again, I mean, Reagan is an interesting biopic, and it's warts and all, which nobody expected. And if you look at the cone of happiness, this thing is sailing very far above it.
When I look at the critics hate it.
Yeah, but the audience doesn't so much.
No,
and you have to remember that many of us grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and we saw what Reagan had to contend with, which is remarkably like what we're dealing with now, trying to fight off the commies.
Independent of that, I'll slot Reagan into my Crocodile Dundee theory, where the industry tends to ignore 50-year-old white men.
Yeah.
And so when Crocodile Dundee came out, every 50-year-old white guy, including my dad, who hadn't gone to a movie in 30 years because they don't care about movies, they came out. And they all quoted the same line. That's not a knife. That's a knife. Like my dad just. But
this is basically the same thing that Sound of Freedom and Top Gun 2 did.
Yeah. Well, no, except Reagan is so individual. Yeah. I mean, I would.
It's the same audience, is my point.
Yeah, same audience, but just this notion of a titular guy who was heroic. I mean, I'm not going to argue the politics of Reagan, but that's how, that's what the guys want. That's what guys want to see.
Well, and
they're not looking for subtlety.
And that's the thing, Paul. I mean, does it surprise you that production budget for that film was only $25 million? If they keep it up, and this is their 3rd weekend, and they're sitting at 18, I mean, they might be able to meet the production budget. This is sold elsewhere. It's going to end up on every streaming service on the planet.
If anything, I'm surprised it was that much.
Yeah. Well,
a company like this has already got it, all the
it's sold,
all the money covered. That you don't go into business as a small studio and produce something like this without having it pre-sold in Italy and Bulgaria.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you right now, I mean, this was the thing that shocked me is that, they expected it to taper off and it just didn't. it continues.
I don't think they're expecting this kind of success, to tell you the truth.
Well, look, I mean, you're speaking to a generation that feels lost right now. I'm sorry.
No. But I'm talking about the studio. I don't think.
No, I agree with you. Yeah,
I think they're going to be really pleasantly surprised when this thing legs out.
Well, and it was privately funded. That's the other weird thing. So, I mean, it took a lot of people a lot of money to get this done, and they did a really nice job with it. Moving on, though, Alien Romulus finally had the fall off we were waiting for. 58% in weekend 4. Only earned just a little under $4 million, lost 560 theaters, and per theater average is down at 1,500. This, though, is the impressive thing. Still a domestic box office of $97 million. When you look at the film overall, globally, this is what we're supposed to see. This number is twice this number.
Right.
It's 2/3 of the box. This is what we're supposed to see on films. Now, it is tapering off and finishing on the lower end of the cone of happiness, but at $314 million. Tom, do you remember what this cost? 80? It says 80 down here. Was that right?
Yeah, I think it was 80 million is what they said.
Yeah. So
do you think it can reach 100 domestic before it disappears? It should
I
be
think
able to do that by now,
easily. Yeah, easily. I think by the time we get to Thursday, it will be well over the $100 million mark.
What's the studio for this?
Disney.
Disney, isn't it?
Fox. Yeah, it's Fox.
Yeah, so they should be happy.
Well, I mean, considering, that they really did need this to get a reboot, because they're going into this TV series with Noah Hawley that, while not directly related to this, we'll have to see how that turns out. Tom doesn't seem excited about it, though.
You got more lore bacon crap.
Okay.
Like, that's just what I need. Aliens on Earth way before Ripley even met him. Yeah, that's smart.
Well, here's the thing, though. Lore breaking, yeah, but the thing that I wonder is how involved is Ridley Scott with that series. I think that he would be fairly involved because, yeah, lore breaking, absolutely. But that lore was broken in 2012 with Prometheus. So I think we might say that it's more Ridley Scott lore and is going to tie straight into that one way or the other.
Well, I'm still impressed.
I'm not saying it's a good thing, but
sure. I mean, and it probably isn't. I mean, for those of us who like the lore behind this world, but the fact that this also is, you end up with two Disney things that are out there in the world, that are doing okay. This thing will cross 100 million. I think you're gonna see a decent chunk of profit out of this finally, and it kind of reinforces the idea that we'll get more Alien. The film I still don't understand why people went to. It ends with Us, a film about DV, still hanging out there in theaters with a domestic total of 141 million. Look, both of these are horror stories. You just don't know it when you go to the Sony film. And
but one of those is a chick flick.
Right. It doesn't make any
Can you
sense
hear
why
me?
this is still hanging around.
Yes, sir. I hear you.
Yes, sir.
We also have 6 joining us. So we have the female
hey.
persuasion.
Hey.
Hello, good morning.
Hey, Six.
Hey,
I
Six.
didn't want to interrupt, so I was hanging out
You're fine.
backstage.
You're fine. What's going on?
I didn't see Alien, so I have nothing to. I thought the trailer looked really good, and that's how I determine whether I go see a movie. I don't rely on other people's reviews, but not good enough to go see.
Yeah, that's fair. Not everyone has to see everything.
Did you see any of the previous films that we talked about?
Reagan, no.
Okay.
Beetlejuice, yes.
Okay, cool. I can't wait to have the discussion around that film. Which
I can't wait to hear what Andre thought.
And me too. So then Sony has another picture in here, The Forge. It moved its way up a position to 6. It's in its 3rd weekend. I really didn't expect much out of this. Believe me, I wasn't disappointed. It's still doing better than they expected, as you can see here. It didn't cost all that much money, but for whatever reason, it's not on here. It certainly didn't look like it cost money anyway. I imagine, Sony's like, well, we put it out there. So there's The Forge. Twisters is still in theaters, Tom. How is this? How is this real? When this went digital like 3 weeks ago, didn't it?
Oh, more.
Really? Of like 4 weeks ago, but even in theaters,
approaching a month since it went online.
Yeah, it's like 8 weeks out there. It still eked in about $1,000 per theater average, and 262 million domestic. That's still, I'm still amazed. So that puts Twisters at 365 million. It was way too much. 155 million plus the marketing. They spent $200 million here. I have a feeling that they're still underwater on this film, which is why it's still hanging out in theaters. That's a good strategy when you're ailing behind and you have it in multiple places. This might be the big miss for Universal this summer, but maybe if they
spent too much money on it.
Yeah, maybe if they eke a little more.
I don't think.
it'll be better
Here's
off.
the thing you guys are missing. It's not Universal. It's Warner and Universal. They are in on this thing 50-50 basically with Amblin.
Oh, okay.
Everybody keeps forgetting that. They basically swapped what they did with The Last Twisters. The Last Twisters was released by Warner Brothers in the U.S. on video and in theaters, and then internationally it was Universal. This time they flip-flopped it. Universal got the international, Warner Brothers got the everything else. So I'm pretty sure they shared cost as well. So I'm pretty, like, they're both probably doing okay with this movie. It'll stay in theaters as long as they can keep it in there.
Right.
People want to see this in premium screens. It was the only other movie playing the day I went to see Deadpool and Wolverine, so that tells you anything.
There you go. Blink Twice was ignored for good reason. 3 weeks in, $20 million. Despicable Me 4, still in theaters, been out digitally for a while, and it's still creeping along. This film, though, I really expected to do well. It's almost at $1 billion, Tom. Almost.
Kind of surprised. It kind of fell off for a bit there, and then I wasn't sure if it was going to make it to the $1 billion.
Yeah, and it outperformed what people's expectations were early on. The fact that they are doing a full... this looks like it's going to be...
We haven't had any more kids' movies this summer either, too. I think that helped.
Yeah, I mean, Inside Out 2 went over $1 billion. It would be amazing if Despicable Me did the same. 10 weeks in. This might get the full 90 days, Tom. What do you think?
I think it's already on streaming.
No, but I mean, it's still going to be in theaters until it runs its...
I mean, it's already on video on demand, so...
Yeah, so I have a feeling this will do well.
I think, isn't Despicable Me 4 on video on demand? I thought it was.
I think so. Yeah, I think it did that 4 weeks ago. I mean, I think it's been out for a while. That's why I'm surprised it's still in theaters and doing well. But, I mean, its per theater average is still really good. So, I don't know.
I'm just so excited we get The Crow this week.
Yeah, that is coming on Friday.
Imagine The Crow. That. Well,
yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that because tied for, last place almost. I mean, 13th place anyway. This is The Crow. It is sitting at 14 million in gross earnings globally. How would you like to be the executive that greenlit this? I
don't think anybody's getting in trouble for this movie. I am still convinced that there's a producer's style shenanigans going on here.
He got paid anyway.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody got paid except for the investors. The investors are the only people who are not going to get paid. So if you were some little old lady who got swindled out of a few $million to make the Crow remake, you ain't getting your money back.
Some of the people who did get swindled here are in fact Lionsgate. However, their
minimal damage on their behalf.
It's only 10 million. That's their exposure. It's like 10. It's a ridiculously low amount. Because that's like the thing. Actually, I'm not sure anyone is going to lose their jobs over The Crow.
I think they made most of their money back by selling it to Pluto TV or whatever it is. Sorry.
When you say they, let's be clear. That would be the production company.
No, I think Lionsgate owns local distribution, so they get the money for that.
That could also be that they have made their money back that way by shifting the risk even further. But their exposure was 10, 15 million, something ridiculously low, and they spent like peanuts advertising this movie. So this is kind of thing. The people that lost the most on it would have been the various international distributors that didn't have a Pluto or something like that to push their losses onwards too. But here, like the losses are scattered over so many people, over so many nations, that it's kind of like negligible. I don't think anyone is going to lose their jobs over this. And the people that would have lost their jobs over The Crow, they already lost their jobs over Borderlands. So it's fine, because I would have been the same people.
Oh, yeah, you're right. And look, I just want to point out, because I would be remiss if I did not, Fathom Events on their re-release of Coraline still earned another $1.3 million over the weekend. So well done on that. And
I now realized why they released Coraline. because the shitstorm going after Neil Gaiman is so hard and so fast that they needed to get the money now because they might not be able to release it again.
Well, I mean, Gaiman stepped into it.
Yeah, and it's just getting worse.
Yeah, one of the most important things to do when you're in trouble, Paul, is to shut up.
Well,
I haven't paid much attention. Has it gotten worse for him? What's he done? Like
well, it's just more and more is coming out in terms of the number of people and very young people he likes to sit in tubs with and massage.
I'm not too surprised. I have met him. He seems like a nice guy at first glance. Like nothing you could say. I've had beer with him and stuff, but you tell me he likes the girls and he's willing to use his celebrity status to get more of them. I'm not going to be like, no, he'd never do that.
I don't think that's the problem, Andre. I think it's the age.
When I said girls, I meant that, not adult ladies fans.
Okay, all right.
Of his own
I was going
age.
to say.
Yeah.
Well, it was the housekeeper or the babysitter that he initially went after. But there's other people lining up now. And the thing is, he's not particularly an attractive guy. But the thing is, he's in a sci-fi fantasy realm. So he's going to attract a certain, kind of cosplaying girl, right?
He's going to be very attractive.
Oh, yes.
Crowds. And this is something that every kind of like, I don't know, so how about now anymore, but certainly like 20 years ago and way beyond that, the moment you had a record deal, no matter how shitty your album were and stuff like that, you got groupies and everything going after you. I'm sure, albeit to a slightly lesser extent, it would be like that for writers as well. It's like,
power and money attracts people.
It's funny how that works. I mean, it was like a huge scandal here a few years ago when the media started realizing.
It's not like Woody Allen was ever a sexy guy, but power and money. He apparently had no shortage of dates.
That's funny how that works.
Of course, I being a member of a comedy group, it was.
I was about to say. I mean, did like the ladies throw themselves at you as well when you were in the Frantics?
But only when my pants were on fire. They were trying to put it out.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So yeah,
indeed. So with that, let's keep moving along here. What else was there to say about the box office?
Well, there's not so much to say other than we can talk a little bit about Beetlejuice, because we have a couple of super chats about that. Let's see what the super chats are saying. Patrick Robinson says for $4.99, saw Beetlejuice this weekend. Have to agree with Tom. 6 out of 10. Movie was just okay. And yeah, of course, we heard this on Friday. Tom did an extensive stream on Midnight's Edge After Dark. Very late on Thursday, that Cultured Casino also attended. Now we know that Cultured greatly enjoyed this movie. Tom greatly disenjoyed it. I don't know that that's a word, but that's the most rhyming thing I could.
Basically, the more and more I think about it, the more it pisses me off.
Yeah, and I
it's not worth the effort.
That feeling. I emphasize that feeling. Like I've had that feeling many times. I'm a big fan of
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice was the worst streaming show of the year.
And that's fair. I don't necessarily agree with that myself. Then a very, very important distinction here. Like Tom, you are a hardcore fan of the original. As we can see, and there's another thing we didn't really speak about, and I'll get to that right now.
I can't wait till Script Doctor sees this thing and rips it apart.
Look at the discrepancy between the domestic box office and the international box office. Now, for comparison, Alien Romulus had twice the international box office as it does the domestic, because Alien is a big brand internationally. Now, this is something that we have spoken about before. As we can see from this international box office, this is, I submit that this is not like any kind of international rejection of this movie, so much as it is Beetlejuice is not a big brand overseas. Beetlejuice is very much so an American thing. Case in point, myself, I knew Big Beetlejuice from the cartoons. That was my first introduction to it. I didn't even know it was a movie until several years later. And when I saw the movie, I actually found it disappointing, because my first introduction to Beetlejuice was the cartoon. That was my frame of reference, and I was never that big a fan of the cartoon, but it was all right. Now, this movie here, on the other hand, keeping in mind, I'm not a huge fan of the original, but I really enjoyed this movie. I had a lot of fun with it, much more than I thought I would have. I thought it was a very cool sequel to the original that I had to rewatch in front of, or just before seeing the original, because for the life of me, I honestly couldn't even remember it. And I think that's a big thing internationally, that the first movie just isn't that known. It's not that much of a thing. So I have no real nostalgia for Beetlejuice. I approach it as something that's there, but that I, for all intents and purposes, rediscovered for the purposes of the retrospective that we did, that Tom deserves most of the credit for. But yeah, I had fun with this movie. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very respectful sequel. I thought that the characters, everything was very much in line with what they were doing there. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a great deal. 6. What did you think about it before we hear from Chato?
I did not enjoy it. The first few minutes of the movie, I hated how flighty and nervous the Lydia was. But I understand this. I'm probably gonna say spoilers. And I understand that she was a drug addict, but she was just so weak-minded dating her manager, and I hated how they dealt with the death of her father. She showed no grief whatsoever. There was, somebody made a joke 10 seconds after she finds out that her father died. So that was probably the biggest thing for me, was how they dealt with the death of him. The granddaughter expressed more grief than Lydia did, or the Catherine. Oh, what is her name? Catherine O'Hara.
The character name?
Yes, the Catherine O'Hara, the actress.
Catherine O'Hara, yeah. Then, she would. Well, I kind of expected that from her based on how she was in Beetlejuice, but, yeah. I mean, that's where it started, and then it just continued through the movie. My dislike for it.
Yeah, and Chato, what did you think?
So there's 2 ways to look at it. One way is just as a plebe going in to watch the movie. The other way is. With the third way is looking at it analytically, and then the third way is kind of from a business perspective. Taking the business perspective first, I've always said that premise is more important than any other aspect of a movie. If you can twig someone's imagination that intrigues them enough to come and see the film, all you need to cast it properly and then not trip over your shoelaces. So perfection is not necessary. And that's, from that perspective, I think the movie did quite well. Sure, my biggest complaint is the half-hour intro before anything really starts happening. And then my second one is they did not brainstorm new things they could have done in the underworld, apart from the first film. But that being said, not a ton of people saw the first film. It's a cultural memory more than something the equivalent of Star Wars. So I think most of the people are first timers to Beetlejuice, and in that sense, I think the movie works really well. I mean, there's lots of fun stuff that you're not going to see in any other movie, or have seen in any other movie if you've never been introduced to the Beetlejuice world at all. So from that perspective, I thought it was really successful. And I liked being back there in the world, and I loved the performances of most of the actors.
Yeah, I'm on top of that. I think you're right there, Paul. I think everybody's performance was spectacular.
Yeah,
all I do. Yeah.
And I think Michael did a better job of Beetlejuice now than in the first movie.
Yeah,
he's much more of an accomplished actor, and there was just way more stuff in there than just a funny guy riffing. And the fact I loved the fact that the guy's a misogynist, and that's why the critics hate the movie.
Yeah,
maybe they're just smart and they realize it's a poorly written film. I don't understand what you guys are saying.
No,
it's an extremely poorly written film.
But my point is, it's well enough written to maintain the premise.
Yeah,
but with following Beetlejuice, it should not be a good enough film. Because I think Beetlejuice in my circle of life, it's iconic, and to have this be the follow up, I was.
But my point is, most of the people going to see this film never saw the first one.
You think that they went into this movie without watching the first one?
Yep, because not a lot of people saw it.
I disagree with you, Paul. Yes, maybe in the theater wise, but even people are underselling that. It did about $75 million in the box office. But the thing is, this movie played endlessly on cable, right? Like, that's the reason I know it so well, is because we happen to have had HBO at the time that this movie came out, and it was on like every other day, and I watched it almost every. I know the first movie by heart, and most of my generation knows this movie, right? That's my point. Is it's an evergreen film that has stayed around for this long, and
I can see your point.
And here's my problem with the whole streaming part of it. It feels like a streaming series crammed into an hour 45-minute movie. Had it just been a streaming series, I don't think I'd have had as much of a problem. That's the thing, is you're attempting to make a movie sequel to an iconic film, right? It wasn't a film that necessarily was Star Wars or Jaws when it came out, but it has ingrained itself into our culture in so many ways. Like, especially in the U.S. culture, maybe not so much outside of the U.S., and I can understand where Andre's coming from, but like, I'm kind of surprised.
Bears that out.
I think a lot of people have been so beaten down by shitty woke films that they're able to accept a shitty film just because it's not overly woke.
And I'll accept that. I don't think it's a shitty film. I think it hits the right beats, and you can enjoy the performances. Jenna Ortega is great.
Jenna Ortega was great. She was the highlight.
I agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of who played the mom as an actress.
Catherine O'Hara.
No. I like her. The
Winona Ryder.
Winona Ryder. I've never been a Winona Ryder fan. So, but that's
that's because of the one time that she pickpocketed you when she was shoplifting at a store.
But I love Catherine O'Hara. Catherine O'Hara, I have to love, because she was the spark that started my professional comedy career.
Oh,
I guess the part that's bothering me most of this whole thing with our community is that a lot of people who didn't like Ghostbusters Afterlife are giving this movie excuses when this movie is basically, or Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, when this movie is basically Ghostbusters Afterlife and Frozen Empire crammed together.
Yeah, but I like this movie better. To tell you the truth, I like this one better than either of those movies.
Not better than Afterlife. I felt like Afterlife at least paid a deep respect and homage to the original films.
Yeah.
This, to me, like the way they write off the Maitlands, the way they treat Charles's character, at least the actor wise, there's all sorts of little things in here that just rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, and I can see that.
The movie comes to a dead halt for a musical fucking number in the climax. There's just so much wrong, and let's not even get into the like story elements that are completely baffling.
Did you hear how when they were, because the dance ensemble, they did it to MacArthur's Park by Donna Summer, and they had somebody else singing it. Did you hear how the line an old man playing Chinese checkers, they took out the word Chinese?
No, I didn't.
Did you notice that? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but then they played the
Pete's
Donna
sake.
Summer version in the credits, and they kept it in.
Weird.
All good with that at least. But yeah. Anyway, but I see where you're coming from, because this is exactly the kind of point that I made. That Six and Tom, you hold this movie, the original, in special reverence. I don't.
That's very true.
And because I didn't grow up with it, and I think that's part of why I actually had a great deal of fun with this movie. Is it the perfect movie? No, I'm not saying it's a perfect movie, but in my book, it did what it had to do. And as someone that basically vaguely knows movie, that knows Beetlejuice from the animated series, and that only recently rewatched the original, and true story, I had to watch it in 2 sittings because I thought it was so boring that it took me a while to actually sit through it. I was like 45 minutes in. When is this thing gonna get going? And then I had to go and do something.
That's how I felt about the reboot.
I know, and I hear that, but that has to do with the reference for the original. Sorry, Paul.
I'm just saying that the movie I don't want anyone to fuck with is Nightmare Before Christmas. That to me is a far superior movie.
Well, don't give Tim Burton sequel ideas for that then. So, yeah.
Paul, how do you feel about the first Beetlejuice? Was that something you hold near and dear? Did you see it?
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, but I don't hold it near and dear at all.
No, you enjoyed it, but it was just another movie.
Yeah, fun, really good.
Exactly.
Tim Burton. Let's dive into his Imaginarium and enjoy what he's come up with. So it's not better than Bigger Fish.
And I would bet that's the same thing with Culture Casino. You enjoyed the original, but I don't know that you hold it, that you revere it.
And that's why I mentioned Nightmare Before Christmas. I revere Nightmare Before Christmas.
He didn't direct that, though. He just produced it and designed it.
No, I understand. But I put it in as part of his canon.
Yeah, but I don't know if... I mean, I wouldn't put it past Disney to try and pull some shit. But I think as long as Tim Burton has any say or sway over it, they won't. And that's the other thing that bothers me about this, too, is Tim Burton has managed not to do a sequel to any of his films yet until now, other than Batman.
And we know he's not...
But I wouldn't count that one of his movies. Like, we haven't got Edward Scissorhands Returns, or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm just... That's another thing, was like, should you have even fucked with it after 40 years?
In that,
I mean, the box office is proving me wrong, so I guess there's your answer. So
I had no problem with this resurrection.
Neither did I, evidently. and continuing from there, Packing Protons said for $5. Supposedly, Tim Burton said he wouldn't do a part 3, but is there enough for one? Seeing it today, and Cultured, with this kind of box office. Is there any chance that we might be getting Beetlejuice?
Yes, absolutely.
And I would not be opposed to that idea at all.
Well, look, let me jump in and actually answer some of the questions. You probably have the studio that want him to do it. I mean, listen to the network executive down there saying, "Hey, absolutely." No, they do. They'll have enough incentive to do it, provided this thing makes a profit. It's possible it could just fall off a cliff, guys. I mean, let's not count our chickens before they hatch, but at the same time, do we want it? I'm going to say this: Burton has been on record saying this was it. I hope it is. As much as I enjoyed the film, as compared to some others here, I don't want to see a third one. I don't think you can do a third one effectively. I would say that you'd have to get different writers entirely. I wasn't thrilled with some of the elements in this script, especially the thing that Paul was talking about. And Andre, actually, most specifically, it took way too long to get started.
Yep.
You already had established characters. You just needed to flesh out the new ones.
You already got a third part in this movie, considering they should have left the Monica Bellucci bit for the third film.
Well, I think she can return if you're looking for an ultimate bad guy, and maybe she and Beetlejuice resolve their differences and live happily ever undead or whatnot.
I agree, though, that if you were to do another one, you need a completely different set of writers.
And you're going to have to do it.
Yes,
right
I agree
away.
with Andre.
You're going to have to do it right away. You can't wait. This cannot wait
That's a good
30,
point.
35 years. I mean, 36 years in this case.
No, if they're doing another one, they need to be shooting that in 1 year from now and releasing it in 2 years from now, and not 1 day later.
Yeah, there's no upside to wait. I still think that there isn't need for one, and if they do decide that there is, they're going to have to prove it to me. Like I said, this one had enough hurdles as it is. Look, Tom's not wrong. There was too much in the film. But, you know, ultimately this still earned a 7 for me, or 7.5. You know, I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between those two numbers now. But it's what we need at the time. There was no competition for this film. There hasn't been a consistent number of good films in theaters. You've had very inconsistent summer. This summer needed to finish on a high note, and it absolutely did.
Oh, wait till Halloween. This is going to, I think, last till Halloween.
It's going to, because do you know what you have coming in Halloween that you didn't ask for?
No.
Venom 3.
Well, I know this was specifically released this way, so I guarantee you that it's on video on demand by Halloween.
Yeah,
regardless of how it's playing in the box office.
But see, you made a good point, Tom, and I agree with you. The windowing on this was incorrect. They should have opened this on the holiday weekend. And they
because next weekend I don't see it doing all that well. Oh, we lost 6.
Oh, we lost 6. No.
She should be back, hopefully.
All right.
Because I don't really see how this is going to perform so well now, because basically everybody's back at school, so now movies are back to weekend-only box office, let's be real. Oh, she's back. Welcome back. So like Reagan is the only movie I think that's going to have any real play during the week, because as you know, like Andre and Paul were pointing out earlier, I agree, like this is a movie that gets your 50-plus-year-old dad out of the house.
Yeah.
But Beetlejuice could have been that movie. So that's the weird thing, is we're like, is it going to be a replay of with Mission Impossible? Because that's what I kept arguing, even though some people didn't agree with me. I'm like, but look, the numbers are there. The older demographic audience that normally would have filled out something like Mission Impossible and helped it make $1 billion weren't going to that. They were going to see Sound of Freedom instead. I don't know if you're going to have the same thing here or not. If Dad's going to check out a Beetlejuice and he's going to go see, Reagan instead, maybe. Yeah. That might be. And I'm not kidding, because, I mean, frankly, look, here's my biggest disappointment of this film, and I know this may not mean shit to anybody else, but Beetlejuice, the original film, is one of my dad's favorite films, right? Like, that's always a movie that I know, like, he watches, he likes. And I talked to him about this one, and he sounded pretty disappointed too, and his response was basically they should have just left it alone anyway. Because I can tell just by certain elements of this film, he is not going to like it.
It's not Battleship of the Potemkin, Tom.
No, but it's the kind of movie it's one of those comedies that he enjoyed growing up, or when I was growing up, that I remember he actually liked, that I liked too. And I know he liked it a lot. In fact, it was one of the first times I got him to watch a DVD, because he didn't care about him. He's like, whatever. We even had this fancy computer with a big screen and everything, so I could watch DVDs on. And I'm like, come watch a movie. He's like, I don't want to watch any movies. I'm like, well, I got Beetlejuice here. He's like, all right, fine. So like, that was like, that's one of those movies. But like, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious how the audience is going to react to it overall. I've gotten a lot of mixed responses. This you guys have liked it more than any of the other panels I've been on. Like Poor Culture the other night, he was ganged up on by everybody on Comics.
Well, remember,
I can
Tom,
tell you right away. Sorry, 6, carry on.
I just wanted to say that, remember, Tom, I sent you that screenshot that Friday night there was 3 screenings in my local AMC that were sold out, and I went to a movie 10:30 showing a.m. 10:30 a.m. I went to that to see it Friday morning, and there were 17 people in that theater, and they were laughing, and I was literally sitting around thinking, what is wrong with me? Why am I not laughing? Is it because I'm tired? Why am I not vibing with this movie? Because
you're a dried up old bitch.
Oh, you're not wrong. But I also wanted to make a comment about getting a third one. When did Tim Burton say that we're not getting a third one? Did he say it before it opened? Did he say it a month ago, 6 months ago, 3 days ago? Because he said on one of the red carpet events, somebody asked him about seeing Lydia's mom, and he said, we'll see.
Money
Meaning,
talks.
like, coming
and
up
he doesn't.
in
He
another
doesn't
we'll,
own
we'll
the rights
see
to
how
the
many
film.
trucks of cash they drive up to my
Yeah.
lawn. I mean, because the people behind the Joker said exactly the same thing about the Joker too, and then those trucks with cash started appearing. So and then that tune changed rather quickly.
The studio
I
does
don't.
not have to hire Burton to do it. I mean, the guys from
Right.
Rings of Power will be out of work. They might as well, hire them because they're talents.
And you know what? I'm sure that Tim Burton likes having a commercial hit. It's been
Yes.
a while since he's had one of those.
Yeah,
And
Dumbo
if
sucked.
he agrees to do a Beetlejuice, you know what that's going to mean for him? It's going to be another commercial hit. If he does literally anything else, then the chance of it becoming a commercial hit, that's a gamble, looking at his recent track record, recent being the past 20 years. So if he wants to end his career on a high note, he'd do a third one.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, considering how long it took to get this one into production. Oh, we lost Six again. I wonder if she's...
Yeah, she was having technical issues.
But, okay. She's getting roboting.
Well, here's like the thing. Yeah, it took a long time, but there are many reasons why it took so long that time. Not the least of which was both the star and director of the movie was busy doing Batman when it had the momentum going for getting another one. Right now, Tim Burton isn't busy doing anything else. Michael Keaton isn't busy doing anything else.
Well, you're also ignoring that the original version of this script sat in limbo for 11 years. We got to remember that too.
Absolutely, but it sat in limbo because there hadn't been a movie since 1998. What changes everything is that we are now in September of 2024, and Beetlejuice just had $100 million plus opening weekend. That is the kind of thing that actually can speed up process pretty quickly, regardless of how long it took before. Like, all of that is ancient history now. Now, if Zaslav decides, I want a new Beetlejuice and I want it in 2 years, he's going to get it. So it's very much up to what does Zaslav want to do. If he wants to do another one, they're going to find a way to do another one. If he's like, yeah, I don't know, then who the hell knows. But with these kind of numbers, we'll see how it holds up next week. But I think that there's going to be a will in Warner to do a third one if these numbers carry on. And they may not, because this is what I was about to say. What we are seeing here, like whenever you have like the Hollywood trade, say it has had a mixed reception. No, it didn't have. If it's Star Wars something, it didn't have a mixed reception. The audience hated it. In this case, what we are seeing is a genuine mixed reception between the people that really genuinely don't like this movie for whatever reason and those that really do like it. Now, who is going to come out on top there? I really cannot say. I don't think that anyone can until we see how it holds up next weekend. I thought that this movie was actually going to, like Tom and I, we spoke about this over the weekend, and I thought that the response was going to be negative enough that bad word of mouth was going to spread, and that by the end of this weekend, it would open to less than 100 million. And it didn't. It made it to 110. That tells me that the number of people that find enjoy in this movie may be bigger than those that take great offense by it. But we don't know exactly the numbers.
Well, I already knew the movie was going to open big, right? Like, I'm not as surprised as everybody else.
Yeah, that's the true story. Next weekend, that's when we'll really know. Like, for instance, if this movie come and has a 60% drop or 65% drop next weekend, that's all she wrote for a sequel. But if it has a drop to between 50 and 55%, they're going to start thinking about, okay, how many trucks of money can we drive to Tim Burton and Michael Keaton and have this still make sense for us?
Well, look, I mean, there's something that I wasn't counting on when I was looking and evaluating this film, the generational reach of it. The thing is, I mean, there are a few things, a few properties that have made their way into the zeitgeist for multiple generations. This is one of them. When you go into Hot Topic or some place like that, Spencer's Gifts, I don't even know if they still exist, but up until I stopped going to those places, they still had all of this stuff that had been around for 20-something years. and that the Tim Burton related stuff is stuff that it just seems to survive forever because it exists in a very gray, murky area, I think, of Halloween or the macabre or the goofy plus the macabre or just its own kind of a thing that just appeals to everybody. It doesn't seem to matter what age. So maybe there is this appeal for these types of properties, these multimedia types of properties that maybe we know what they are when we see them, but we just can't put our finger on how to make them or how they actually end up happening. Because I would say that Beetlejuice, Nightmare Before Christmas, stuff like that all falls into this very strange but interesting macabre world that people want to explore.
Yes, there's a whole generation of women where, and I've brought this up before, they're like, there's a demarcation line. Yeah. Like you go from, I've dated women where Lost Boys was either their favorite movie, Nightmare Before Christmas, or more recently it's been the Twilight stuff, right?
Right.
So like that's like the demarcation line. So like Tim Burton has like, you're right, he does. Like women, there was basically Lydia is like half the girls growing up in the 90s.
Right.
Like that's kind of where, but the problem I had with this movie too is like Lydia didn't grow up. Like she's literally wearing the same costume. She's acting the same. Like that was a big problem for me too, is like, I guess some women will be okay with the fantasy of, yes, I want to grow up and be the same girl I was when I was in high school, but I don't know.
Can you accept the fact that some people unfortunately get, emotionally stunted by events in their life and maybe are held in the same position?
Yes, because that's me. But
Okay.
no, I know I'm just joking around. But like, no, do I see them doing a third film? I don't know. I think Burton gets in the way of a third film for a while. He doesn't necessarily need to make a third film. Michael Keaton doesn't need the money.
Yeah, and that's you and I are on the same page there, dude. And he during his press tour early on in multiple articles, whether it be Variety, Hollywood Reporter, or Deadline, who are all owned by Penske Media, the various versions of him saying, I don't think this will ever get made. A third film will ever get made because, I can't wait 30 years for it to happen. It's like Ian McKellen indicating that he wants to play Gandalf again. It's like, okay, dude, but you're going to be dead. It's not going to work. I just don't see it happening. So I wouldn't say no to a third film, except that I don't know what they would say or, the story would be, but. Yeah.
That's kind of what bothers me about them cramming so much story into this movie is, like I said, you could have set up the Monica Bellucci story to be the third film to finish off the trilogy that really ties into the first film of when he pulls the finger out of his pocket and pulls the ring off and he's like, don't worry, honey, she meant nothing to me. Nothing. Like that all would have tied together, and you also could have cleaned up, and I'm not going to try to get too spoiler here, but you could have also cleaned up Jenna Ortega's side story with that boy that I feel like everybody's kind of being hypocritical about. But that being said, you could clean that up by just having it be Beetlejuice, right? Like he's using her to get to Lydia instead of having all this convoluted crap piled on top of each other. Just like, I love Willem Dafoe. I think his character's fine. I think it was a great addition to the film. The problem is he serves the film no purpose. I would love to see a streaming series with that character set in the Nether Realm. But for this movie, it's just a waste of time. Well, he's literally there to and this is the sad fact of the matter, he's literally there to give one bit of exposition. Otherwise, he serves no purpose.
He serves the purpose of the one thing that this movie smacked of was network notes, in that it's been a long time since the other movie, and I really got what I call the harder, faster pussycat vibe from it. Mm. And that is all this stuff you're seeing, a lot of it, I think, was directed by management, because they're
and you can tell.
They're scared to death.
You can tell.
Yeah. So that vibe to me was all over it.
I mean, and honestly, some people are like, oh, Tim Burton's back and stuff. I didn't really seem to see Tim Burton so much in this movie. yeah, there's Tim Burton elements, but to me it felt like somebody trying to direct a movie like Tim Burton. That's what it felt like to me, and kind of failing. And I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who caught like the very mean-spiritedness throughout the script. It just kind of like felt like there's just
to me,
some edgy meanness to it.
To me, it just felt like Tim reacting to being put in, Hollywood jail for a while. But
he hasn't been, though, really. That's the thing. And I don't see that. I mean, I see where you're coming from, but I don't see that. Right? Well, like, I didn't see anything making fun of Hollywood. I did see a little bit of what I guess you would call anti-woke stuff with, like, we got another protester, and they even kind of make fun of Jenna Ortega's character. That was something that kind of bothered me, was like her being so into protesting and stuff that she doesn't even give a shit about her grandfather dying. But then you find out later why she's like that. So that element, like I said, that's the problem with this movie, is there's a lot of good things in it. There's just too many good things. It's like a trail mix where somebody threw in way too much shit. It's like, why the fuck are there mints in my trail mix and stuff? You know what I mean? Like, there's just...
Well, first of all, Tom, it helps with fresh breath.
Well, right, but my point is mints don't go with fucking crackers and pretzels, dude. That's the problem we have here. We got too much shit in a mix. It's stuff I like separately, fine, right? But, and again, that's where, like, Monica Bellucci, I swear we haven't brought up enough of the fact that she gets the shaft so hardcore in this movie, and not in a good way, right? Like, she's barely in it. She's prominent in all the advertising material, but it's almost like, was she an afterthought? Like, does this even really play into the story? Because it doesn't really connect with the main story until near the end. And even then, it all feels tangential and feels like all these storylines are wrapping up on purpose because we have to wrap them up, and it's like, it just felt so unsatisfactory to me. I guess that was my problem. Just too much. Yeah. It's like, yeah,
I can't agree with that. I can't disagree with that. That's what I meant to say. Can't disagree with any of that. But still, we'll just have to wait and see how the movie holds up next weekend, and then we will know more. But we do have a couple of more super chats here. Rounding out anything to do with Beetlejuice. Jesus Davila said for $20. Thank you, Jesus. Tom, went to see Beetlejuice last night. Honestly, it was very disappointing. I liked some parts, but as you pointed out, Tom, too many things going on at once. I also feel like they did Dolores de...
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just saying, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Chaosonic 1 says for $5, my guess on why Lydia is the same. Button has a type. Button has a type. Goth chicks. Granted, I also like goth chicks, so I won't judge. So yeah, there's that. And then going back to the top here of those that remains, we have let's see here. This going to do a couple of other things before we get to the next main topic that we teased in the description here. Marksman of 117B says for $4.99, Paul, Norway may need to apologize for Dustborn, but Canada never apologized for Goodbye Volcano High, a government-funded woke visual novel game about Dino.
Wow. You know what? I don't keep track of every stupid thing our government does.
Yeah, he continues, Paul, the game was so bad and woke that 4chan made a parody version called Snoot Game that's actually amazingly and full of depth. 4chan's second game. But yeah, with that established, carry on.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, don't know anything about it, and I don't watch 4chan.
And you never played that game, even if it came out of Canada.
I know nothing about it.
Well, Six sent me something here in the background, just kind of wrap up some of the Beetlejuice stuff. I mean, yeah, like at the end of the day, this movie's not going to need to make that much money. It's probably well in the black already. She sent me an article here from Variety where they're just talking about all the tie-ins they have for Beetlejuice, right? And that's how these big, tentpole movies used to basically fund themselves, is by getting all these, promotions. Because like Beetlejuice, they talk about Fanta and Carmex and all the other. I mean, shit, the commercials have been funnier than the movie itself, if you ask me, all the Bob commercials and such. So yeah, I don't think this movie's... That's the funny thing about this whole thing. Even though I didn't like the movie, like, A lot of people keep going after Warner Brothers and Zaslav like he's done nothing but destroy. It's like he's had nothing but hits since he's been in office. I mean, like,
save the studio. This is another win for him.
Like, I mean, you go back in the last year, he between Barbie, Wonka, Dune, this. I mean, I'm sure Twisters internationally. You know, I mean, I could probably name even 3 or 4 more. I mean, they have had more hits than any other studio in the last year, basically.
And Wonka's maybe a good parallel because I didn't want it. It's I didn't see it, so I don't know how good it was, but it had the right cast. Timothy Chalamet is a hot actor. You don't need many things to make something successful, and it looks like Warner's is doing things the old-fashioned way. The projects don't have to be great. I've often said that when something turns out good, that's actually the accident. It's way easier to hire a director, cinematographer, and actors than it is to make something good.
Absolutely.
And that's a cynical point of view. And I don't mean to be cynical. It's just, it's a very tough business. And there, we can count to a half a dozen movies, more than that, 1,000 movies where we'd say, wow, I think we got everything right and it didn't succeed. I would suggest that Mystery Men is one of my favorite movies. And what happened to that?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's very, very good point.
Pull my finger. Pull my finger.
Yeah.
They call me the spleen.
They call me, yeah.
And we're going to need Bat Tom to gear up here, even more so than usual. Thunderstrike says for $10, my baby girl turns 1 today. She was born 3 months early last year and didn't come home till the end of January. Just like Rocky, though, she never stopped fighting and lasted every round. And I say, bravo. Bravo, that's how you do it. And congratulations to your little girl, Thunderstrike, to you, and, of course, to the mother.
And yes, now we have a way of calling him. So it shouldn't take too long. Oh my God, it's Monday. What's going on? Oh. Oh, we got a 1-year-old birthday. Little babies are so adorable. They slobber all over themselves. They have no hair. They poop themselves. Kind of like me every Friday night. But happy birthday to your little girl. Congratulations on a year that's amazing. And I'm glad to hear that everything has turned out so well for her, Thunderstrike. So happy birthday to you and the little girl, and hopefully everybody is having a wonderful day today celebrating. And yes, Rocky is a great movie. You should show her Rocky. I agree. Is that it?
That sounds perfect. Yes, Rocky also dispelled some very good life wisdom for girls that every girl should be aware of when it comes to reps and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a good movie.
I think the first movie should be Nosferatu, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and Culture, he just about has to leave us first.
Oh,
but before he does, Zaki says for 1,000 Hungarian florins. Mr. Chato and Andre, I'm include Culture in that as well. How do you like the government-funded series Rise of Raven? And that was actually a trailer that we watched behind the scenes here. And that's a trailer that you can all find on YouTube as well. Rise of Raven. It's a Hungarian series. Go check that trailer out. If you like no one likes the Rings of Power. But if you like the Lord of the Rings, and especially if you like Game of Thrones, then go check out the series for Rise of Raven, because you may have a new favorite there. I thought that series looked absolutely fantastic. I thank you, Saki, for putting it on my radar. I now look forward to checking it out. The fact that it is in Hungarian is something that I think is
multiple languages.
Fantastic. Multiple languages, even better. Because here's like the thing, you know what? Whenever I watch like Beetlejuice or Rings of Power anything, it's not my language anyway. So it's just all the more authentic. So I like it. I appreciate it. And I thought that this trailer here looked absolutely smashing.
Oh.
Thanks for looking for taking me to it. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that governments should be funding. And when
it's also part of a massive history and an important history of Europe. I mean, it's not the 1500s and the constant battles that happened during that time. No, people don't realize that it was almost a daily event. Huns attacking and
it happened fuck all in Norway at that time. Fuck all happened. So forget about Norway right there. But that's where you want to go to Hungary and stuff like that. That's where history happened in Europe at the time.
Yep. And this is an important historical event in Hungarian and European history because Hungary
not enough black people.
Because there weren't. Although the Turkish are there. What's really neat is that the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, they speak Turkish in the movie, and the Italians speak Italian. And I think the Pope is played by Giancarlo
Esposito?
No. The guy who was in Swept Away, the Italian actor.
Yeah, that's who I meant to say. That's just the wrong name that popped
Yeah.
in. He was also
Anyways. So, I think there's money from all over Europe, which is typical of something like this, but the sword play, the horses, when they went top notch on this. And the women are sexy, gorgeous. I think there's probably knowing Lantos, because he's known for liking his women, has a reputation for it. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of topless skin and maybe even nakedness in it. But
it's European, so it better be.
It better be. That's also true. Oh, the costumes, the settings. I could see some of the locations in Budapest. I recognize them. The Turkish baths in the Gellert Hotel. That's famous. But it just looks great. We'll see. They'll get an English dub out of it, and we'll see whether the actual story is interesting.
I hope they don't dub it. Sorry.
Well, they have to. It's going to be done.
I'm sure, but I hope they don't, or at least I probably won't watch it that way. Because I'm going to appreciate it for what it is. I will say before I leave that this looks phenomenal. It looks great.
Yeah.
The sound, the music, the various languages, multiple languages. Very, very impressive. I enjoyed every moment.
And very important, the languages here, because again, this European history, this warfare between nations, the language is a character. There's always the problem with stuff like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. They all have the same language. No, not in reality. It don't work like that.
Oh, that's one of the things that drives me nuts with Rings of Power is that you go into a village. Oh, there's a Chinese, there's an Asian, there's a black person. It just isn't even like that in the world right now. Maybe at one point, everything is going to be one big homogeneous.
No, it isn't. The only place where that is tried is the Western world.
Well,
and the only homogeneous here is you, Paul.
And it's not working well. They have forced.
It's a disaster.
And it's creating all kinds of trouble that didn't exist before. We all got along well when we were all in our little own islands, and we worked out something for global peace for quite some time. But that's not what the mongers want. They want war, constant and total war all the time. Anyway, I'm going to watch this show. I'm looking forward to it.
When's it out?
I can't answer that question.
I don't know. I don't either.
Yeah. Oh, do you know for a fact when we'll be seeing this, Andre?
But we will be seeing it because this is such a big production that this is going to be available certainly on the big networks in Europe, all of them, and probably it's going to be on Netflix or some other major streamer. So just like Shogun, you will be seeing it.
It looks it's up there with Shogun in terms of its look and feel.
Yeah.
I will be seeing it. But anyway, I'm going to dip out. Thank you for having me, everybody. It was lovely to hang out with you.
Köszönöm szépen. Viszontlátásra.
Boku wa kami no shita ro. Arigato.
Arigato.
Sayonara.
Thanks for joining us, Culture. Anything you want to plug on the way out the door? He already left out the
He's
door.
left.
So anyway,
He's
go
out
check
the
out
door.
Culture Casino's channels. The links are in the description, including that gay place, which is also there. Go subscribe, follow Culture. He's one of the hardest working, best YouTubers around, and
He's like Elvis Presley.
Yeah, indeed. And with that, let us move on. We have another big topic to cover today. This is related to a huge scoop's putting it lightly, but basically a huge story that dropped of all places in the New York Times yesterday on a Sunday. And it's about Bob Iger. And we, of course, will be doing videos about it. It's taken a little while because it's such a massive article. Like, it translates to about 20 pages, so it's a bit to unpack there. And if you've been following our past coverage on Bob Iger and Bob Chapek and the transition between the two, there's not going to be much that's new to you because we will have covered this pretty extensively. But still, what is new is that this is in the New York Times, a publication that does everything in its power to prevent non-subscribers from actually reading it, as you could see right there. But don't worry about that. We have the whole write-up anyway. And also on that note, Packing Protons also said, how many people got an angry call into Iger's office after that article came out? If Dana Walton was part of it, her CEO job in jeopardy. Yeah, getting a little bit ahead of herself there, but the gist of it is that this 20-page behemoth of an article, just like the CNBC piece that we covered in detail last year when that came out, is based on conversations with people in the circle around Bob Iger, and they do not paint a pretty picture of Bob Iger at all. On the contrary, it makes it very, very clear that Bob Iger was always the problem. Bob Chapek did nothing wrong, and the only thing that he actually did wrong was that he wasn't sufficiently a laptop for Bob Iger's liking, because he was always the one in charge. And the only reason he didn't like Chapek was because Chapek wasn't subservient enough to him. We will break down the article in much more detail, but that is the gist of it, and it is now in the New York Times.
When did it come out?
Yesterday.
Well, wow.
So you think there are many angry calls in Iger today?
Oh, Iger's flipping out.
I would imagine so, because I'm surprised we didn't hear anything more about the CNBC article, which came out last year, which said pretty much the exact same
that's
thing.
True.
But this one adds even more detail, and none of that detail is good for Iger. Because through it all, again, it's a lot to go through here, but through it all, what is made clear is Chapek did nothing wrong. He never did. He always did the best that he could, the best that anyone could do, with a CEO ahead of him that just wouldn't let go, and who was always there behind the scenes, stirring up trouble, undermining him every single step of the way, and for no actual reason, because again, Chapek did nothing wrong. The stuff that it was up for him to manage, he managed perfectly well. Like the Disney share price was at its highest ever, and this was even under the lockdowns. And still, Iger wasn't happy.
Yeah, the issue was it was higher, not under Iger. That was the issue.
Yeah.
Wait a second. I want some of that higher stuff. Yeah, give it to me. You're taking my higher stuff, higher stock stuff. That's no good. I want some of that higher stock stuff. Give it back.
Well, and it also not confirmed, but it added more credence to a lot of the stuff we'd been hearing and Pro had been hearing and other things that were going on at the time. I mean, how basically Chapek had never really had control, as we were implying from the start. And I love the breakdown of when he kind of realized it. I think his wife even said that you're basically Bob's lapdog, I think is another quote out of there, which is interesting. So, yeah.
So does Chapek come out of the woodwork in this particular episode? Because in this article, because we haven't heard from him at all.
No, he can't say anything.
That's the funny thing is who's actually like they don't cite the source for this article, correct? They just it's a Disney insider, basically.
Just like before, they cite insiders, just like CNBC did. I guarantee you that Bob Iger, he's going to have a fairly good idea of who those insiders are. One thing that I was very, very happy with is just like CNBC, they repeat the exact same story of when Bob Iger decided he had made a mistake in appointing Chapek, only they add even more detail to it. And this was on the plane to their very first quarterly presentation. And in the original story from CNBC, they laid it out as Bob Iger wanted to prep Bob Chapek on every single detail of what to say. He wanted to relay, okay, here's the fine detail, and here's the fine print, and what you need to say. Whereas Chapek was like, but I don't need that. I just, like, everything is in these papers, right? Well, yeah, but not what I want you to say, was basically what Iger said. And that's when Iger realized that, oh shit, Chapek is his own man, and he's actually going to learn how to run this company and run this company the way that he thinks is best and not the way that I think is best. And that's when Iger started undermining Chapek. That was what was in the CNBC piece. Now, in this New York Times piece, they tell pretty much the exact same story. So they have obviously spoken to the same people who were there on that private plane. So there can't be that many people. But they added even more. So they've spoken with someone else as well. And the additional detail that they added was that when Chapek actually asked Iger for advice to begin with, then Iger didn't want to help him. He just wanted to show pictures of his new yacht and how amazing that was going to be, and his private jet and all of his luxurious wealth and all the money he was burning for his private consumption, and impress him that way. That's when Chapek decided, fine, you're not going to help me. I'm going to go to the back of the plane and study myself. And then only later did Iger decide, okay, fine, I have to go and now drill him to make sure that he says what I want to say. And then continues exactly what they said in the CNBC story. So basically, that additional detail that the New York Times delivered made Iger look, if anything, even worse and more petty. What's really interesting here is that, I mean, this thing right here, it's coming from the New York Times. This is like one of the many pravdas. This is made the firm foremost of democratic pravdas. This is something that is read by most of the democratic electorate, certainly like the
for sure.
Post. And they are the ones who are greasing elbows with Iger. I mean, it makes me wonder what the hell has happened behind the scenes here for this kind of hit piece against one of their own who has done such a good job for the party to be taken down this way. I'm not saying I have any answers. I just think it's really curious for the new, like CNBC. I can see why they would write a hit piece like that, because consider that CNBC is owned by Comcast. Comcast Studio is Universal, meaning even if they politically are on the same basic side as Iger, they are corporate enemies. And in the CNBC Iger hit piece, they were taking down a corporate enemy. The New York Times, however, taking down Iger, that's taking down a party man. And the New York Times, very much so, is a party publication. What the hell has happened behind the scenes for that to happen? And I'm not saying that I have the answers. I just think that's really interesting questions. Chato, any thoughts on that? Or Tom, what could have happened for the New York Times to go up against Bob Iger?
So there almost needs to be a story around why this story is coming out now, Because
to me, that's actually more interesting because there's nothing in this piece that we didn't already know. If you've been watching, like if you're watching John Campea, this is a huge revelation for you because he's a complete Iger suck up. And for anyone who is watching him and who suddenly read this piece, it's going to be a shocking revelation. But if you've been watching Midnight's Edge, if you've been watching WDW Pro, if you've been watching Valiant Renegade for the last few years, there ain't nothing in this New York Times piece that you didn't already know. Oh, there's some details, but not in the major piece of things. But again, we are against Iger for a reason. This goes straight out to Iger's closest friends and followers. To me, that is a bigger, more interesting.
Oh, yeah. So to me, the intrigue around again, I view this stuff along the lines of Stalin on the reviewing stand, waving at the Soviet armaments going down Moscow Square, and they keep removing his apparatchiks, airbrushing them out from the stills as he kills them off, or they lose favor with Stalin. I mean, to me, there's just so much story around, this kind of intrigue, because it is the New York Times that is, as you said, is going to have some weight. The people who are on the fence or have contact with Bob, this is going to be a giant embarrassment for them. I mean, I could imagine the next dinner party where nobody is allowed to bring up the article. Don't, whatever you do, don't mention the New York Times.
Yeah, they're going to silence it to death, like they've done before. But I think it's going to be more difficult to silence the New York Times to death than to silence
why
the NBC.
Now is something
about
to happen? Is it?
I
what do you think?
wonder. Yeah.
Why now?
That's the question that needs to be answered, not the content of the article.
I mean, I sit here and wonder, okay, who's pissed off, right? Because here's me putting on my goggles of how this happens this way, and you get this sort of report. So whoever's reporting this is clearly close to Bob, right? Like they're close enough that you said we even got more details than we gotten before. And whoever this is either has felt this way for a while or has finally come around to the way of seeing that, look, this shit is not working. And Bob is a narcissist who will not let go of power, right? I mean, there's another part in this.
Can I correct you a little bit there, Tom? I don't think that they need to be close to Bob Chapek. I
meant Bob Iger, but okay, go ahead.
The other thing, I think, close to Bob, yes. Just like Emperor Caesar, right? It was the people who were the closest to him.
That's what I mean. I have a feeling this
stabbed him.
Could even be somebody who's in contention to take over the company. And that could be them trying to expedite him out the door.
So for the earlier super chatter, if anything, this is where Walden comes into the picture. Not that she's going to look worse for this. If anything, she's one of the conspirators behind this article, trying to rush him out the door earlier.
Yes. And whoever it was either friendly with Chapek or was feeling like Chapek clearly wasn't getting his fair shake at this. Because that's the big overarching thing I got out of this article when we went through it last night on Valiant Renegade, was that Bob is a big narcissist, like a straight up fucking narcissist, right? Like,
kind of have to be in the business.
No, I mean, like, so bad that he cannot even see how, like, this company needs to be saved from him, Paul. Like, he thinks he is the god that's making this thing go round.
Possibly. And let me correct the last thing. I made a narcissist joke. I've actually been privileged to meet several.
Sorry, I didn't catch it. My bad.
No, it's okay. I kind of joked. You made a narcissist thing about Bob, and I said, "Oh yeah, well, all CEOs are narcissists." But the fact is that I was privileged enough on one of my journeys to meet quite a few CEOs of some Fortune 500 companies, and generally, they're not like what everybody perceives them to be. they're actually very down to earth and very smart people. I mean, I assume that there are I never met Larry.
Well, they don't have
Ellison.
to be mutually exclusive, right?
No,
I mean,
no, and I'm sure Bob is smart and very convivial in real life. But there's the fact remains that he's not doing a good job of running Disney. That's just really the bottom line, right?
and that's what I'm seeing here out of this article. Whoever it is, whether it's somebody who used to be in the Chapek camp, somebody who's in the middle of both, somebody who's been close to Bob for years, Iger, I mean, or somebody who's even, who may be up for potentially taking over the company. I mean, who wants to try and take over a burning down house? Right? Because that's literally what they are right now. They're standing in the middle of the room and the house is burning down around them. And Bob's like, this is fine. This is great. Check out that heat. That's free heat, kids.
Does anyone think that when Chapek took over, which was prior to COVID, I mean, no one was thinking of.
No, it was
COVID.
in the middle of.
Pardon me?
It was at the beginning of.
But they didn't know really what the implications were, right?
Yes, they did, and this is actually something that
it's brought up in the article. Yeah,
in this article, how Iger had meetings with Newsom, and it was actually Iger that argued to Newsom that shutting down the Disney parks is the right move. Just let me get the hell out of the CEO seat first.
Okay,
and put another taxi in there.
So he abandoned ship.
Yes, this is looking more and more like Chapek was set up to fail from the start. Exactly.
Oh my God, because I thought he.
And this is in the New York Times.
And this goes back around to what you were saying, Paul, is as soon as it turned out that, oh, wait a minute, this guy's actually making moves that are making the stock go up.
Right.
Bob got jealous. And and this is where I was saying, he is such a fucking narcissist. Like, if you read through this article should be put into like textbooks for narcissism, because he is destroying this company simply out of his own ego at this point.
I never thought that when we all joked about the fact we assumed that Deadpool and Wolverine was okayed by Chapek. I don't know any of us.
Maybe
we didn't have hard evidence of that.
Yes, we have heard from sources that have hard evidence that is something that was done. That was Chapek. That was 100% Chapek.
The only one I'm not sure on is Inside Out 2. I think he might have greenlit that.
But Chapek forced through Deadpool and Wolverine.
Okay, well then
here's why I say this.
Yeah, sorry, carry on, Tom.
I was just gonna say, when Bob come out and said we've got Inside Out 2, Toy Story 5, and blah blah blah, Frozen, all these, I think all those were greenlit under Chapek. That was what I was gonna say. Sorry.
Yeah, but the one we know with 100% certainty, we can't have an external thing, but what we have heard from inside sources who swear this is the case, Deadpool happened because Chapek willed it into existence. They had pitched it to Feige like 10 times.
Yeah,
or something.
I heard that.
He had blocked it each and every single time, even tried to talk Hugh Jackman out of it. Then came Chapek, and they went to him once over Feige's head. And he was like, of course we're doing this. And then he basically forced Feige to do it. And it's the biggest hit they have this year.
Isn't that hilarious? Isn't that the biggest hit that Disney has had in years?
And then you can contrast that to what is coming next, which is WandaVision, where the showrunner came out and basically publicly said that, we heard that in San Francisco there were drag brunches in the honor of WandaVision, and we are so fascinated by that we have
I wasn't invited.
Schooled all of Agatha all along, specifically to please the 25 people who were at that brunch and screw all the other millions of other people. Just for like the difference in management. And Iger, of course, was perfectly okay with that.
I mean, and then we have, the other things that go on, because we know, I can almost say for certain that Deadpool and Wolverine was greenlit under Chapek because of the simple matter that I believe it was Ryan Reynolds was saying for years that it was a dead project because they just couldn't see eye to eye on it.
He even said that in the movie. We didn't think this movie was ever going to happen.
Yeah.
That's a dig at Iger and Feige right there for blocking him for years until Chapek forced it through. And by the time Iger came back, it was too much money was already spent that they could stop it. So they just
and the other movies that were either greenlit or at least shot under Chapek, like I can almost guarantee you that's the reason why they did all the reshoot. We know actually now more so that that's the reasons all the reshoots were done on Ant-Man, because Bob came back in after it had been done and he's like, I don't want this. I want it more funnier. Right. I wanted this. I wanted that. And he's done that, I think, with a few other films too. And then he also made that comment about Captain Marvel where he's like, there wasn't enough oversight. See, we made fun of him on that, but I think what he was saying was that Chapek was letting the creatives go off and create, but he was also holding them responsible. See, that's the part that Bob didn't agree with, right? Bob wanted them to be able to just go off and create and not be held responsible.
Names right now because we have two Bobs.
I'm sorry, Bob Iger. My bad. You're right. Bob Iger was like, yeah, they don't need to be held responsible for, not selling the toys or making a hit movie, right? Bob Chapek come in and the first thing he did was reposition things to where the creatives could be creative, but they also had to answer to why these things weren't working,
and
right?
He had a lieutenant in charge of that too.
And see, that's something Bob didn't like. Bob Iger didn't like.
And I can't remember the guy's name, but he was extremely competent.
He was the second guy, and he was also an executive of color, and he was the second person to be fired. Kareem something. Anyway,
you know what we should demand? We should demand the Chapek cut of Ant-Man now. We should get it out there. Hashtag Ant-Man Chapek cut.
And I know for a fact that the director, he has that cut. He is pissed about what happened. He doesn't say anything publicly because he still wants to have a career in Hollywood and he's smart. But he is very unhappy with what happened to his movie. He's very unhappy with the final cut of it. And he thinks that movie would not have been as poorly received if his pre-Bob Iger reshoot cut had been released. And I don't know that movie would have been all that much better, but it probably would have been a bit better.
Well, I heard it was a more serious movie until Iger got...
Yes, Iger, he went in and he added the completely uneven tone by adding the comedy.
Random comedy, that's what we need.
Like for instance, other bad stuff that may still have been there. Like, I don't know if that insane retard MODOK was that in the original cut.
Oh my God.
Know. Was the daughter an activist in the original cut? I don't know. Probably. That's what I'm saying. We don't know if the original cut would have been that much better, but it would at the very least have been more consistent.
You know what? I can just envision if Gone with the Wind came out now and the Disney executives are going, you know what? This cut is okay, but we need to get a writer to punch it up.
Yeah.
Well, that's the name of the game in Hollywood. Who can we have rewrite this 1,000,000 times over? And what they also never do is, even if something, this is what I don't get about the rewriting process. When you have a project that sometimes through bad notes or the bad match between writer and material keeps getting worse from draft to draft, why don't they just cut their losses and scrap the last 10 drafts and go back to the starting point?
I'll tell you why.
Instead of continuing with a shit draft, which is already screwed.
I'll tell you why. And Beetlejuice is a great example of this. And this is why I think that movie has got this problem. And Paul can either disagree or back me up on this after I'm done. The problem is, once you get a script done, and this is the thing, you get 12 actors in the movie, and especially when you got a Michael Keaton and a Jenna Ortega and Michael Willem Dafoe and all these other big people, they all want business to do. They all want to have their specific things in the movie. So what you're doing is you're juggling 500 fucking notes from different people and trying to make this web work. And that's where I feel like that movie is a great example of how this can happen. Where you brought up many times before about the too many cooks in the kitchen, Andre. That's part of it, but part of it is because you know, so-and-so demands that they want this. So-and-so demands that they won't say this, but they will say this. So-and-so wants this for their character, da-da-da-da-da. And that's something I noticed with Beetlejuice is all these characters in the film, the new characters especially, they've got great business and they're well-defined. But the story shit, right? So that tells me that they spent a lot, the actors and Tim and whoever else spent a lot of time defining these characters and figuring out business for the actors to do. Like Danny DeVito's a great example of that, right? Like he's just got a small bit part in the movie, but I know more about him than I do any of the cast members of like the Star Trek Discovery. I couldn't tell you half their names, right? So like that's the thing is you've got all these great actors who want to do all these things and bring all these things to the table, and all that does is mess up the soup. Because now instead of it just being, you know, your basic tomato soup, now it's tomato and, you know, basil soup. And now all of a sudden it's tomato and cheese and basil soup. Now it's potato, tomato, and cheese and basil soup. So, yeah.
Movies are always an accident. That has not changed for decades.
No.
So it's just, again,
but when you compare the original Beetlejuice to this, let's say, for instance, like the original Beetlejuice, especially going through the scripts, that movie is almost verbatim what the script is until Michael Keaton comes on screen. Every time Michael Keaton's scene comes in with Beetlejuice, it's like 99% improvisation.
Right. Sure.
So you read that script compared to the movie. So in that film, that was where Michael Keaton was the driving force behind that first film with Tim Burton's vision, pushing him along or giving him that boat to sail on, right? In this movie, it feels like you've got everybody's ideas just thrown in there.
Sure, that's entirely possible. Again, my feeling was that a nervous studio were making way too many notes. You have to understand that.
Well, that's too. You got producers' notes on top of it all. Yeah.
Yeah. The challenge is that this is a funny thing. So if you're not a script writer, you won't really understand it. When you're writing the script, you're confident that you have the final version. And then once it gets close to actually getting into production, you get nervous and you're not confident in what you've written at all. And the chances of it then going through further rewrites only for the purposes of going through the rewrites is very, very high. And that comes from the fact that everybody forgets what their feelings were when they initially read it. Because once you read it 1,000 times, it's no longer funny or interesting. Whatever it was that grabbed you to begin with is kind of lost. So one of the things that I've learned to do, having done it so many times over the years, is that whenever I'm knee deep in something creative, I always go back to what my initial feelings were when I first read it. And I trust those feelings, even though at the point where I'm at now, I'm sick and tired of hearing it. It's not funny, not interesting. You got to dispel that feeling. The problem is executives often don't dispel that feeling. They go, oh my God, I'm no longer enjoying this. Let's get a rewrite. No. Remember your original feelings when you first read it, but very few people have that maturity to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, I have not read the original version of Beetlejuice script to compare it, but I'm just going off of what I'm seeing here. And the fact that the original version of this was written 11 years ago, and you've had the Wednesday writers come in and rewrite it, those same writers that, Jenna Ortega said that wrote stuff that Wednesday wouldn't say, if you'll not forget.
But she had to go and basically correct them. Yeah.
Well, they're gag writers.
And, well, if that's the case, then there wasn't very many good gags in this movie.
But either way, this was, however interesting, it was a sidetrack. So what I'm interested to see with this New York Times piece that we started with here is this thing going to have any fallout and consequences?
Right.
Because the only thing that I was very disappointed about with the CNBC article was that we covered it. The people in our circle covered it. The people that were skeptical against Bob Iger got affirmed in, it's not just smoke, there's fire here. Bob Iger is a disaster for Disney, we all know. And all the stuff, 100% of things that Bob Chapek was blamed for was ultimately Bob Iger's fault. Every last one of them, from the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit to everything else, it was all Iger all along.
Well, this is basically his Biden moment, I would say, really, if you think about
I'm
it.
very glad that I'm glad that you mentioned that. Let's do this member chat from Dark Kings, been a member for 41 months, saying, how long before Iger gets the Biden voluntarily stepped down treatment? At some point, the bad press has to stop to affect the stock price. Then even the plebs will see that he is a liability. Well, the plebs already see that. The problem is that BlackRock and their friends, they're the ones that have to see that. And this is the thing that I'm curious about right now. Should this thing in the New York Times actually be this kind of Biden moment? And for those that, if you are even the slightest bit about doubt about that, no, Biden didn't voluntarily decide, for the good of democracy, I'm going to step down. He stepped down because Obama and Nancy Pelosi said, if you don't step down right now, today, we're going to 25th amend you tomorrow, and then that'll be your legacy. And that's when he stepped down.
And I think that's part of the reason George Clooney come out and all that other kind of stuff. And that's kind of why I'm getting the vibe from this here, because I think the other thing that's pointed out in this article is that he's technically there until like 2032 or something like that.
Oh, now. Yeah, well, he's there until he's
so
dead.
They want him the fuck out. Somebody wants him out and gone. So to me, this tells me that, yes, they went with him and sided with him on the proxy war, or at least he won that proxy war. But what I'm seeing here
I actually wouldn't be surprised if Dana Walden is very active.
Dancing around that. I've been dancing around that. I didn't want to flat out say it, but you did. So now that it's out on the fucking table, yes, that's my prime suspect right now. If I'm a detective on the case, that's my prime suspect who put this out in the press. Because she's... Yeah, go ahead.
Because Iger has been grooming her anyway. That doesn't mean that she has any loyalty to him. Consider this the exact same thing. Before Iger, the guy before him was grooming Iger, among others, to take over the lead. But once he felt ready, Iger took it and stabbed his predecessor in the back. Just like the Sith, right? All the Sith, they are being groomed to take over, but there's no peaceful transfer of power. That happens the moment when the apprentice is more devious than the master and becomes a new master. Maybe that's what we're seeing here. Maybe, just maybe. I'm just considering, because we know this very much thanks to WDW Pro, who's done excellent exposés on this, so kudos for that. However much of a party man Iger may be, Dana Walden is a personal friend of Kamala. That Trump,
oh my god!
However much of a party man, yeah, no, like Doug, Doug Emhoff is like the second husband, or like the husband of Kamala. Well, they apparently met through Dana Walden or something like that, so they are tight, close, personal friends. Doesn't matter how senior and apparatchik Iger may be. If I'm just speculating here, I don't know.
Right.
Just pure speculation. But if Dana Walden were to whisper the right words to Kamala and she were to decide, okay, it's time for Iger to go now, how would we see that? We'd be seeing it this exact way.
Girls be helping girls, But no, like at the end of the day, wouldn't it be ironic that if Iger gets ousted with a coup, just like he kind of did to Eisner?
Here's like the thing. This is a very, very important thing, and that is, has Iger been able to hold on to Disney for as long as he had? Well, that's because there was no peaceful transfer of power. He took it. He essentially launched a coup against Eisner. We basically organized the board against him. He took control over the company. If something is taken, then someone else has to take it from you. This is the problem that Bob Iger faced.
Well,
power, the CEO position was given to him, and anything that is given can be taken away.
Yep.
Anything that is taken has to be forcefully taken away in another coup. And maybe that's what we're seeing here.
The thing that Iger did, and whoever's trying to take his place has to remember, is if you're going to take a shot at the king, you have to make sure you hit him.
Yeah, you better not miss.
Because in this case, I think you're right. This morning, he is flipping fucking tables. Going, who did this to me?
Yep.
Who fucked me? So basically the same exact thing that he did to Chapek is happening to him this morning. The irony of ironies is that's going to be lost on him. Right. So he is going to be raging. So to answer your question from earlier, Andre, I guarantee you there is a big fucking one-on-one meeting with everybody this morning. There's a big group meeting this morning. Iger's ripping through people's bullshit, going like, what the fuck happened? How did this? Who did this? Does anybody know anything? What is going on? Like that, I guarantee you that is what like any of the jokings we've had in the past about, you know, after a Star Wars opening or a Marvel opening or whatever, and, you know, what the fuck happened, Kevin? Those kind of mornings, that ain't nothing compared to this. This was Nuclear Monday.
And I'm sure he's freaked out as well, because here's like the thing, when something like this happens, he can't fire underlings, because this is a party hit job. Someone in the party wants him out, because remember, New York Times, it's no longer what it is. It used to be, well, maybe it never was, but it always had the appearance of being an independent newspaper and great journalism and independent investigation. It has stopped being that for years now. Today, it is purely a party publication. This is the party, the Democrat Party, going against Bob Iger. If anything, that is what has him the more worried. This is like what has left me puzzled. And I didn't think that Dina Walden single-handedly would be behind this until we had this conversation right now. That just dawned on me. But yeah, this thing right here, it's not going to be enough for him to do any kind of like cleanup in Disney, because this suggests there's displeasure with him in the party.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because I know everybody's first gut instinct is going, oh, well, this has got to be Chapek's people or somebody Chapek even. It's like, why? Chapek's got nothing to gain at this point. Somebody does.
No, this has nothing to do with Chapek. Chapek is.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, he's just being used as an example. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. No one here, like none of the people here, well, they may have some personal sympathy, but it's not a matter of him getting his comeuppance or anything like that. No. He is being used as an instrument to get at Iger here.
Yes, it's to show his narcissism and lack of leadership skills, because it's all about Bob at the end of the day. That's what I keep getting to, and that's what I keep hearing from this article, and that's what I keep hearing from these people.
All about Iger, you mean? Again, we have to stop.
Yes, to be clear, it's Iger the narcissist. When I say narcissist, it's Bob Iger, because clearly Bob Chapek
was not that. No, he
is farthest thing from it. If anything, he was a team player. Like, he's the guy that Bob's like, look, I want to keep my office. I got to have my showers. He's like, sure thing, Bob, no problem. You know, little Bob, big Bob. Remember that whole thing? That's even brought up in there.
Here's the irony. If Bob Chapek had been just allowed to completely run Disney, this is the man that gave us Deadpool and Wolverine, Disney would have been in so much a better state right now. That company would have been on the way to getting back again instead of sinking further into oblivion, because that's where Chapek was taking it.
Yeah, and I get it. He wasn't popular when it came to the parks. I totally get it. But as we've pointed out, sometimes there's this certain people that they're the right person for the right place at the right time. We keep bringing Tom Rothman up as the perfect example of that, right? Because you and I, we used to make so much fun of that poor bastard for all the shit. I mean, even Ryan Reynolds made fun of him publicly, right? But that guy went from being the worst thing that ever happened to Fox and X-Men and Deadpool over there to being the best thing. Tom Rothman, didn't I say that?
You said Ryan Reynolds.
No, I know, but Tom Rothman.
But I said, I did. But I said even Ryan Reynolds had a crack at him. Remember the whole "Hi, Tom"? Right. Yeah, that was him saying to Tom Rothman, "Yeah, fuck you," basically.
Yeah.
That he went from there to Sony, and he's basically single-handedly brought Sony back from the brink.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because of everything that he did wrong over at Fox, he's doing right for the most part over at Sony. The only thing he can't seem to get right is his basic problem. and that is the comic book sci-fi IP driven shit. Look, that's his weakness. So he needs to bring in somebody who knows that kind of shit, obviously, or he needs to step down.
That's what he needs, ironically.
Yeah, he needed a James Gunn at that time, but at this point, I think he's either done everything he's going to be able to do for Sony. Now's the time where Tom should be thinking about retirement. But that's just a good example of how some people can get out of the way of their ego sometimes, or at least, because he even said that in an interview. He's like, look, I never understood these superhero movies, right? And somebody had to explain it to me. He even said that specifically. Right? And sometimes that's what it takes, is the right person to sit down and get your attention, right? Like Andre, for me, you're that. Sometimes, I'm sure everybody has that person in their life where, just can't seem to hear the same thing from 100 different people, but coming from that one person, the way they explain it to you, it just seems to sound right and make sense to you. Right. Yeah. So
this is what happened with Biden. Like, the right person to tell him was Pelosi saying, leave today or be 25th Amendment tomorrow, and that made the difference. So,
yeah, but Iger's not going to go without a fight. See, that's the big difference.
Yeah.
Chato, I think Iger wants to leave a legacy. This is not a good.
His legacy is cooked.
I think so too, and it seems that I remember that as much as Eisner was kind of vilified at the end of his run. He didn't have a lot of love for Iger.
No, and that's what Andre was referring to, is that even though he was being groomed, I think Eisner seen a little bit of it coming, and then when they were in the thick of it, like, that was like some really backbiting shit going on back then. Like, that's a Midnight's Edge video in the waiting to happen some point.
And the thing is, what did Iger do? Iger did two things. One, he created live version of existing properties, and then he bought 3 big properties and ruined them. So there was nothing I think he created from scratch per se.
Yeah, I would say that he is the perfect embodiment of the true legacy of the Dark Knight, which is this one quote. Like, you either die young enough to become a hero, or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. I botched it, but you catch my drift, right? If Bob Iger had retired in 2015, 10 years into his reign, he would have gone down in history as the greatest CEO in Disney history, because then he would have acquired Pixar, he would have acquired Marvel, he would have acquired Lucasfilm, and as of 2015, they were all smash hits. If he had left in the aftermath of the release of The Force Awakens, which was one of the biggest hits of all time, his legacy would have been secured. That's when he needed to step down and have someone else with fresh blood come in and prevent all of those companies from going down the drain. And most importantly, do not freaking buy Fox, because that was one of his single biggest mistakes. Instead of realizing that now I have done all I can for the company, my vision and strategies, they worked, but now someone else needs to go and maintain and make sure that.
If you're riding high of a massive hit, that's the last moment that
that's the problem.
No, but he didn't learn anything from Eisner's era.
Then of course, let's not forget about his other massive success, Disney Plus.
Very good point. But anyway, here's the thing. Because he is riding high. But you know what happens when you're riding high? When you ride high, that's when you are at the peak. Now, you do not know, is the peak right now? Is the peak in a year?
Oh, you don't know.
That's exactly it. You don't know. But what happens after the peak? Well, then comes the fall. And he stayed so long that he got to experience the fall and the collapse. And what he also did was that his acquisition strategy, it had worked. But here's the thing with things that work. They work and they work and they work until they suddenly don't work any longer.
Right.
And when they don't work any longer, they're going to stop working at the worst possible time. And that was with the Fox acquisition. And they lost more on that than they gained on any of the other.
It should never have been allowed. I mean,
it should never have been allowed.
Never should have been
allowed. By that time, there was no one to oppose him, because he had replaced everyone on the board. There was no board, and this is the one thing that I regret that no one paid more closer attention to, because Disney, honestly, if there was any kind of functional legislation where corporations are concerned in America after that CNBC piece, Disney needed to be put under public administration, because a company that size needs to have a board unless it's taken off the market and it's gone fully private, like Elon Musk did X. Then it's a different matter altogether. But that's not what happened here. Disney pretends to be a company with shareholders and a board, but it doesn't actually have a board, because the board doesn't function, because they're all appointed by Iger, and he is not beholden to the board. On the contrary, the board is beholden to him, and the board shields him from the shareholders. There's a fundamental dysfunction there, which is another reason why he needs to be ousted. And then the entire board needs to be ousted as well. Not only do they need to be ousted, in my personal opinion, they need to be prosecuted and sued. I'm not joking.
Oh, I agree with you.
Violation. They need to, if it's not an official matter, I don't know that yet, but they all need to be sued. Every last one of them.
They have abandoned their fiduciary duties.
Exactly. There needs to be a class action lawsuit against Bob Iger and against every single motherfucker who has served on that board the past 5 years, because they have all been in direct violation of their fiduciary duties. Yep. And you just need to look at what has happened to the Disney share price. Did the shareholders have any kind of say? Did anyone represent the shareholders when they agreed to buy Fox? How much have the shareholders lost just in the shareholder value? Consider from Chapek's reign, when the share price was $200 at the height, and now it's hovering around 90 somewhere. They've lost more than half their value, and they've done it because of Iger's idiotic decisions that their shareholders all signed off on, and they don't have any stake in the company. Just like was documented by Nelson Peltz over that entire proxy fight thing. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. I mean, the company, it's a mafia company, practically.
So, and I mean, that's what I was saying too. I mean, I love Mike's analogy where basically Bob Iger is the new wife that comes in, redecorates your house, and then adds on like 6 fucking additions to the house, right? All she does is cost you money, and she's like, look, but I'm saving you all this money, or I'm making you all I made your house worth so much more now. You know, it's like no, you really didn't. But okay.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we are
losing Paul. We have some super chats for him.
Yeah, we have this one. Mark's Man of 117B says for $4.99. Paul, I'm just messing with you. I'm just a little upset. You people, meaning you Canadians, chose the banks instead of gaming. Talk about missed financial opportunity. Oy vey.
Yeah, well,
I'm assuming he means
listen, Canadians. It takes a lot to to bug me. No, you don't have to explain about messing with me. I kind of get it generally. Not an issue. I think it's funny when someone baits you and I'm going, okay, they're now getting into they're going into some play acting, and then I come back and then they go, oh, Paul, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I go, no, you like ruined it. I'm just now coming back. Now I want you to give it back to me. Anyways,
that's where I'm smart enough to say sorry in a text instead of doing it on a stream. Duh.
That's right. Anyways, not an issue, but I have to get back and do stuff, and
you're all dressed snazzy for something.
Well, I recorded my video about Cancel Me. I produced a video this morning that all the main misfits are being gone after by Star Wars. Yeah, all the Star Wars sycophants, the wokesters, demanding that YouTube cancel and demonetize them. And apparently there's some legal implications in terms of going after other YouTubers, because you can't be mean to other YouTubers per se. And that is actually in the YouTube agreement. And so they're now suddenly in legal jeopardy, potentially. But, you know, I was wondering why they didn't come after me, because one of the what do you call it? The aspects of having gone after these, you know, the main guys, is that the number of views that they've been getting has increased. So I want them to come after me just so I can get more views. It's no fair. So I did a video called "Cancel Me." It's very funny, and I'd like you to go check it out. That's it.
All right, and I believe that's all the super chats for you. Let me double check the Rumble side of things, but I think you're free to go.
Rumble, and I will have a video with my son dissecting the Minecraft trailer.
Oh boy,
my son is a Minecraft fanatic.
Yeah,
and made some very interesting comments.
Yeah, and how's your quest in discovering Rammstein going?
Oh, love it! Oh my God, it's. And I've been finding other Rammstein fans. They're so deep in terms, and I love the music. To me, it's actually right up there.
Yeah. Did you check out the song I sent you, Whiteweg? I think you like that one. Okay. It's very Kraftwerk inspired.
Yeah, the latest Nightwish album is not as exciting as I'd like it to be. All you Nightwish fans or the Nightwish army are going to come after me. Maybe they'll cancel me. But going over the
old... Well, here's like the thing: if you win over the Rammstein fans, there are much more of them than there are Nightwish fans that wants to cancel you. So,
well, because I'm going through the old catalog, I'm going through all the big hits, and I think they're very funny. I mean, what an interesting, wonderful sense of humor that those guys have, and the music I love.
Yeah, I'll send you a list of the
heavy metal
music videos of the year they came out. I'll send you on the Lindemann quest next.
Okay,
you need to warm up with Rammstein first, because the other guys in the group, they're holding Lindemann back. So you basically need to be warmed up for it. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't need to hear that guttural heavy metal where someone is singing in that.
No, I'm talking about thematically.
Oh, okay, thematically. Well, since it's in German, I don't care. I just listen to the sounds, right?
Yeah, no, but you can see the videos.
Okay, that's true. That's true. Anyways. So I know there's a huge number of Rammstein fans out there who wait for us to talk about it with every video.
Yeah, you should check out their reaction videos. Maybe you can do one of those.
Huge. Yeah, I should do some of those. Anyways, I'll talk to you later, gents. What is it today? Today's Monday. So
Monday all day.
Monday, September 9th.
Hopefully we'll see you Wednesday.
Yeah,
take care.
The plan.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
All right. So with that, let's grab these super chats here. We got Everything Burns says 2 weeks later, an Academy isn't shooting. Yeah, I heard some rumors about that. I don't know what's going on over there, but it's funny because I think that also ties into what Trey and Matt were saying. Did I tell you this, Andre, or I think I told you this Friday?
Share. I've been hearing some stuff behind the scenes. None of it's very good for Alex Kurtzman. But do share.
Well, it had more to do with Paramount in general and South Park, because they were commenting on how they were going to take the rest of the year off, because normally they have a new season in October. But they said they're going to avoid the election this year because you know how that fucked them last time. And the other thing was, they said, now this is almost an exact quote, they're also waiting for Paramount to get their shit together. So I've been hearing lately that, like, the rumor going around, and this was before they said this, mind you, because I think this is why I would say, did we bring this up last week or not? Because I know this was on another stream last week. I don't remember if it was on the morning show or another one, where I'd been hearing that pretty much everything had come to almost a dead halt at Paramount. There's only a few things that are actually still kind of happening or working and going in the back, you know, because everything is in transition right now because of the Skydance deal and all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised. What have you heard about Kurtzman, though? Because I've heard two sides of the thing. The problem with Skydance is... Yeah.
I've heard a few mixed things. He isn't out, but he isn't getting a lot of cooperation. Like, he's getting the contractual minimum, but he isn't getting any kind of support. And what I also heard is the kind of stuff that the Skydance people want to do isn't the stuff that he wants to do, and vice versa. So there is some conflict of future direction there.
Yeah, and I'm still curious how the rights are going to be doled out after this is all said and done, because I'm not convinced that Skydance isn't going to sell off CBS to either Warner Brothers or somebody else. And I wonder if the rights are going to go with that, or if they're going to hang on to the Star Trek rights. I don't know. But yeah, until I hear anything more solid on this, like basically the only thing I know that really hasn't been shut down over at Paramount has been basically like the network shows and like the Taylor Sheridan shows. Although there's some stuff going on behind the scenes there that might get in the way with the whole Kevin Costner thing. But as far as the spinoffs and all those are still pretty much doing fine and being filmed. Like, I guess, like, you know, like the Sylvester Stallone show, I think just finished their second season. And
yeah, that's coming out now soon. So yeah. That's done. And also, I would imagine it's not really going to affect Beavis and Butthead much, because that's also...
I don't know if we're getting another season of them or not yet. I'm wondering on how that's going to roll. Did we hear if we're getting a solid third season on that yet?
We heard a third season was coming. Remember, a third season was coming. So unless something has changed behind the scenes, that should still be coming. So I don't think that blocking animated Beavis and Butthead is high enough on Skydance's list of priorities that I would worry about that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah, but a money drain like Star Trek, which is something that they personally have prior involvement with or something like that, that I can imagine can be a little bit more like, oh, hold it, we're going to have a look here, so hold your horses. Whereas something like Beavis and Butthead, like, okay, so you need like $5 million.
Well, that was announced last year.
Yeah, fine, yeah. So I'm not worried about Beavis and Butthead. But Star Trek, I hope that they are going to do some serious scrutiny there. What I am hearing, and I'm hearing mixed things from different sources, but the general thing I'm hearing is that they're not seeing eye to eye. And that's good, because that's the first step in some kind of change happening. Now, exactly what kind of change is happening, that I don't know. And probably they don't know either, but it's a necessary first step. And as Everything Burns is saying now, 2 weeks later, Academy isn't shooting. That's a good sign. Now, it's not the end all. Remember, Picard was also late in shooting, but it did shoot in the end. So what's going to happen with Academy? I don't know. Hopefully it will never start shooting. And for those that wonder, Academy, that's the spin-off series to Star Trek Discovery.
Tilly's supposed to be one of the leads in it, yeah.
Exactly. Now, who the hell would want that?
Yeah, and it's been a year since they announced the Beavis and Butthead thing. I totally spaced it out. You're right.
Just so that people who are, shall we say, of the female persuasion, obese and afflicted with being nervous and high-strung and tense and a little bit autistic and everything, can see themselves represented as captured on screen. Is that a good reason to flush another 100 million down the drain? I'm not so sure that Skydance will see it that way now when they suddenly have a much bigger stake in it. Yeah. So if there's a way out of it, hopefully that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this all rolls. It's going to be an interesting next few months when it comes to Paramount. Hell, even maybe a year when it comes to getting everything finalized and worked out. So we'll see. We'll see how this rolls here. But yeah, we hear anything more, we'll definitely keep you up to date on that. Connor Dorian's here and sends in $5. Says, Speak No Evil comes out this weekend. Well, there's a horror movie at least coming out, it sounds like. I'm not too familiar with this one. I kind of vaguely remember seeing something about it, but otherwise, was there something specific? Let me see here. Ugh, I can't type this morning.
Yeah, I've seen the trailer. It's a remake of a Danish movie.
That's a Jason Blumhouse film. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a remake.
It's got James McAvoy. Okay, that's the one I thought it was.
Yeah,
the
that's
James
the one,
McAvoy.
and that's the one where he said that he based his poor performance of what's the name? What's his face again? That dude, bro, who's widely considered toxic. The guy who run like
Tate.
Tate, yes, thank you. Which I think is completely and utterly ridiculous because Tate is nothing like that. But anyway, whatever he's got to say in the press, I guess.
Yeah, it looked mildly interesting. I don't know if it's going to be a movie it could surprise. Blumhouse has that thing. Like
what they had going for them, though, is consistently very low budget, meaning a relatively low success threshold. And I really appreciate both Blumhouse and A24. These days, probably more A24 because they have like some truly original horror movies and stuff. And those movies, they're not for everyone, but the ones that are good, holy hell, they're so good.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. It could be one of those surprise films.
Yeah. Indeed.
But yeah. We got LK here who sends in 2 and says ABC is moderating the debate. This was a warning. Yeah, well, we'll see how this rolls.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah, indeed. It's ABC and but how much damage can they do unless they suddenly like do as you had like in those memes? They turn to one and like, why are you so mean? You have 10 seconds. And then the other one, why are you so awesome? Unless it's like something super obvious like that. That I think it's a very real risk that we could see a repeat of what happened in the previous debate. And let's be clear about what happened in that previous debate.
Yeah.
The Orange Man pummeled the Dead Man so badly that the entire world saw that he was indeed a dead man. And it ended his presidency and his campaign. That's what happened the last time around.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if Kamala will perform that bad, but what she does have is that drunken run-on of the mouth bullshit where she can just say a lot of shit and not say nothing.
And the media has been protecting her like you have no idea. And that CNN interview where basically she had to have the VP, her VP along with her as a support pet. And they still could only show half of the filmed interview, apparently. So this is a person that does not work so well in a live setting.
So that is what he has. But the problem is, you're right. Like, the media is going to say that she's the clear winner. They've already crowned her the winner before the event has happened. Unless some massive, like, takedown happens on Trump's part, which I doubt. Because if he's smart, he plays it cool, just lays back and does like he did in the last one and lets her be her own worst enemy at that point and not fall into the traps they're going to lay for him.
Well, he has Tulsi Gabbard, who has been drilling him for the debate. And
good.
I still say she should have been his VP pick.
I agree. And that would have helped with the whole woman thing too. I think
should have been his VP pick. That is my opinion. Waltz is another mini-me of him, which is all good and well. But he needed to pick Tulsi as his VP pick. I really think so.
Basically, he just has to not get rattled by, because she's going to throw felony stuff at him. She's going to throw rape accusations at him. She's going to throw just about anything she can at him.
Oh yeah.
And he's normally pretty good about this stuff. So I'm not too worried or concerned. It's like I said, it's already predetermined that the media is going to say she knocked it out of the park.
Well, they did that after the last one, almost.
I know, right? Like, so it doesn't matter. Like, it's all it's going to matter is what the people see and what the people actually think at the end of the day.
Yeah, indeed.
But yeah, we don't want to get too deep into that. We'll maybe save some political stuff for Wednesday.
Yeah. But still, I mean, should have been Tulsi.
No, I agree with you.
I don't even have a vote, but just like for
I mean, I don't hate Vance, but like it would have made more sense. I agree with you.
As like I would be very happy with her as VP. But yeah, that's me. Anyway, moving on. And
we got Mark Dolly, who sends in 5 and says, blaming Bob Iger for Disney's woes is like blaming Ronald McDonald if you get a bad cheeseburger. Neither of these clowns is in charge of the company. Actually, I disagree on this one. Yeah.
Very much so is in charge of Disney. This is kind of like what we're saying here. The problem is that usually, and this is the thing that I wish that that especially John Campea would learn, is that when you have a company like Disney, a company that has shareholders and has a board, the way that it's run is that the people who ultimately own the company are the shareholders, and the shareholders appoint the board, and the board appoints the CEO. And then the board holds that CEO accountable on behalf of the shareholders, right? That's not how Disney works. What is being done there is blatantly illegal, because what has happened there is that over the course of years, Bob Iger has hijacked the board, and he has replaced each and every single person on that board with an acolyte of his own, which functionally means that the board of Disney does not serve the interest of the shareholders. They are there to protect Bob Iger against the shareholders. The only ones that Bob Iger answers to are the very biggest corporate institutional shareholders like BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street and JP Morgan. Oh, he answers to those because he's in private meetings with them and stuff like that, but at the expense of all the other shareholders, so it's still a violation of Disney's fiduciary duties. So no, this excuse doesn't fly in this particular case. You absolutely can blame Bob Iger for Disney's woes because they wouldn't have happened without him.
Now, if you were to say Mickey Mouse, then maybe you'd have a point, because Mickey Mouse and Ronald McDonald are similar in that respect. But there is a CEO of McDonald's who runs the company, and just same thing here with Disney is Bob is the CEO and he runs the company. Yeah. And in fact, he's running it into the ground. That's the thing.
And you can make the argument that where McDonald's is concerned, it really doesn't matter who runs the company, because the board is going to hold that person accountable. If that person doesn't perform the way that the board wants, the board is going to replace him. So you can make that argument there. But you can't make it in the case of Disney, because Iger controls the boards. And if he doesn't answer to the board, but some select shareholders, that's all the worse.
Right.
So, that's the unique thing about Disney right there.
But the funny thing, Mark, is here's my argument to this too as well. If you remove Bob from the equation, if the company were to just run without a CEO, I think it would run much better than with him. That's, I think, the worst argument, or the worst point that you have here is like, at this point Disney would have been better off had it just not had a leader and just running autonomously like it had been for years, and with just certain people in charge of different areas. It probably would have run much smoother without somebody like him at the helm destroying it the way he has, because all these decisions that have been made are his, right? All the woke crap, all the stuff that's been done in Star Wars has been done under his watch. It's been done with his okay. It's been done with his encouragement and or signing off on it. So, at the end of the day, the only time I ever seen him actually take any blame for anything is when he did admit Star Wars was having issues, and more recently with Marvel, but he never understands why, right? He always gives some stupid excuse why. And sure, publicly, sometimes you're going to do that as a company, because that's just your publicist says, well, say this instead of this, because then it sounds better. Okay, fine. I get that. But after going through this article with Valiant and everything like that, and knowing what we know about him, hearing the things we've heard, this guy is the problem, right? If you want to point one finger at one person specifically, he is the major issue. Because even if with all the woke folk in the company, if you had a strong leader who could say, no, we're not going to do that because Star Wars fans are primarily male, and you're basically shitting on all the male fans, so let's not do that. If you had a strong leader, they could still control those woke people, right? Like, that's the difference. And it's like you get an argument with them, it's like, well, there's the door, get the fuck out if you don't like it, right? Like, that's just kind of how they had to run things there, and that's not how Bob was. Daddy Iger was called Daddy Iger for a reason, because they loved him, because he would let them do whatever the fuck they wanted as long as it fell in line with his DEI initiatives.
Yeah. But anyway, Mark Daly, he has a follow-up here, but we already addressed it. To clarify, Iger is simply following the board's directive, which is that producing leftist propaganda to change America is more important than profit. Except, as we established, he isn't following the board's directive. The board is following whatever he mandates they do, because Disney doesn't have a functional board. This is the issue, and this is why you can blame Iger. And that and I'm not saying that he isn't doing that. He very well may be producing leftist propaganda, but then he is doing it in conjunction with BlackRock and the Democrat Party, not at the behest of the board, which again is what makes it worse.
The board's at the behest of him, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And then Hypergiver 2 says for $5, Iger fancied himself the Caesar of Disney. And now he's getting taken out like a real one. Yeah, this is how you have to remove Caesars or Kaisars or emperors of the company. They came in by backstabbing someone else, and that's the way they're going to leave. They're not going to leave. They won't go quietly into the night. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And then the Seaman says has been a member for 19 months, sends his membership a message saying, if it's Dana Walden, I want Iger and her to destroy each other. Disney absolutely needs an outside CEO, not either of those two woke clowns. I agree completely with this. What needs to happen in Disney, in my book, is that the entire current board needs to be let go. The shareholders needs to appoint a new board, and they need to find someone else from outside, and they need to find an outside hatchet man who will fire everyone and rebuild the company with
basically like what Elon did at X.
Yeah, that's what's needed. Like, you don't necessarily need Elon to take this.
No, private, that's not what I mean. But
although I wouldn't be opposed to it if he did, but you need that approach. You need someone who will use the kitchen sink treatment.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where he fired, like 70, 80% of the company's staff. And it was the best thing that's ever happened for the company.
And honestly, like I said, if you had a strong leader all this time, it wouldn't have been necessary anyway, because those woke people would either be put in their place, would learn to either, work the way they're supposed to, Disney, or do whatever. But yeah.
Well, to be fair, Disney has a strong leader. That's part of the problem. But a strong leader who understands that he isn't the emperor of Disney. He is there on behest of the
motherfuckers
board.
Like Kane and Poltergeist. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's leading them into death.
Exactly.
Right?
Iger is a strong leader, but he's the wrong kind of strong leader.
Precisely. Like, I agree with you. He can talk people into anything. As far as that part goes, he has the charisma, but he has piss poor leading skills. That's the problem. Yeah.
Or certainly an outdated vision.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Kalekioki sends one in on the Green Machine side. I don't know if we should really say the name out loud because, on YouTube.
Yeah, that green place.
Yeah, he says, happy 25th anniversary to the Sega Dreamcast, released in North America September 9th, 1999.
Oh, yes, indeed.
That's right. It was $99.99. I remember that. Yes, the console ahead of its time.
That I strongly regret that I didn't get that one, because honestly, I think that was kind of like possibly the last true gaming console that didn't need anything else, and that wasn't anything else. And it was way ahead of its time. It was more proficient than the contemporary PlayStation 2, which beat the teeth out of it. And I'm sorry to have contributed to that myself, because I actually got the PlayStation 2 open or launch day or launch night, but only for its DVD.
Well, it's all Sega Japan's fault that it failed.
Oh, totally.
Like, I mean, the quick history is, for those who don't know, Tom, what's his name, who came over from Masters of the Universe? Remind me his name. Blonde guy. Tom,
I forget his name. Anyway, that guy.
Yeah, he came over to Sega, and he is one who's responsible for giving, basically, Nintendo a run for its money and making Sega what it was in America. And Sega Japan started getting jealous of him, because the bigger guys up over at Sega Japan are going like, well, why can't you be more like Tom?
Kalinske.
Yes, thank you. Tom Kalinske. They're like, why can't you be more like Tom? So that would piss them off over there. So they would sabotage the American side. And that's what happened. They got so screwed over by everything. And then on top of it all, got screwed over by Sony and Nintendo through the whole thing too. It was a big old fucking... There's several documentaries out there about this, and they're actually pretty well done. But yeah.
There was a strong CEO. Like, if only, you know what? If Sega just hadn't made Tom Kalinske the head of the entire company and just realized, you know what? You made this big in America. Now we're going to step back and let you handle the Japanese side of things as well. Sega would have been the dominant console to this day.
Instead of saying, why can't you be more like Tom? They should have just got Tom. Exactly.
Yeah.
See, and this is Tom Kalinske is the reason why whenever anybody asks, well, who should come in and take over like Disney? I always say somebody from outside, right? Because what Tom Kalinske did is he came from the toys and what came into gaming. So like he didn't know really much about gaming, but he knew how to sell toys. And he's like, you guys need to be able to sell it like this. And he was the one who saw Sonic. You need something like a Mario to sell this. And Sonic was the thing that he keyed in on. And, you know, he was the guy that was responsible for a lot of that shit. And so Sega Japan lost their fucking minds when he goes, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give away Sonic with the system. They're like, are you crazy? It's our biggest selling game. He goes, and that's exactly why we're giving it away with the system.
Yeah.
Because we'll sell more systems that way. And he was 100% fucking right. And that's the thing, is you need a visionary. You need somebody who can see beyond the trees. Somebody who isn't in the pond all the time with you guys saying and seeing the same shit all the time. Right? And I know this is one thing I'm sure you appreciate about me, Andres, because that's what I try to do a lot of these times. Is I like say, okay, well, you're looking at it from this perspective, like with the Dana Walden thing earlier. It's like, so a lot of people would say, oh, it's Chapek. No. There's somebody else here. There's always something that, you know, you're not looking at. There's another angle to this possibly. And that's what somebody else from an outside company can bring into a new something like that. Yeah.
And that's exactly what Disney needs right now. They need an outsider. They cannot have anyone who has come up from the broken corporate culture, who has been raised under Iger's reign of terror. That's not going to fly. You need an outside killer to fix that company. And no outside or no killer can come up in the Disney system right now.
And they can't have friends. See, that's the thing. They need to come in and say, look, I need to be your dad. I don't need to be your friend.
Exactly. You need someone who isn't afraid of offending someone at the cocktail party, because he's going to go to that cocktail party anyway. Honestly, the best thing would be to get someone from out of the country.
There's that too. Yeah. I mean, and that's where I've said, honestly, I'm surprised that Hollywood hasn't gotten smart and gotten stolen some people from Sony and Nintendo at this point. That blows my mind. Right? Like, it's like, okay, that makes absolute sense. Video games are huge right now. They're kicking Hollywood's ass in some ways, if you think about it. Yeah. Why isn't Hollywood doing that? Like, that's normally what they used to do is like, well, we're not doing what we should be doing. Let's bring in some other people, you know? But anyway, I hope you got your $2 there worth, Kalecki. That was a good question. So. Or a good point today to bring up Sega. And I know Andre loves his Sega, so.
I do.
Then we got SFXF314 Sabertooth Raptor sending in $2 and says, it was the best of Bob's, it was the worst of Bob's.
Yes. It truly was, yeah.
And he learned nothing from Eisner's reign, right? Like, that's the thing that because Eisner, the sad part about him is he was arguably one of the best things to happen to Disney since Disney. He brought the company back from the brink. He didn't start going downhill until he started getting greedy near the end. And that's when he pissed off Roy. That's when he, started doing these direct to video sequels. He wouldn't
stayed too long.
Yeah, he got too stingy with things. Yep. And he was making a lot of the similar mistakes that Bob was making, only his didn't come to, didn't have any fruit. Like, he was buying things.
It's the same with most CEOs that come into huge corporations, because they have a vision, and that vision may be right for a time, but that vision that was right for a time may not be right beyond that particular time. Then their ideas are passé, and they can no longer adapt to a new situation. And that's when you need someone else to take the company to the level after that. Now, if the company is in a stage where it needs to be taken to that next level, but you have the same person that keeps applying his own strategies that worked up until now, but now the world has changed, it's not going to fly. And that's what happened with Eisner. He kept on doing what he did, and what he did was fine for a while there, and it tremendously helped the company. But then he kept doing variations of that after the problems that he was solving already had been solved. And then that wasn't going to take it to the next level. Then you needed someone like Iger. Same thing with him. The strategies that he had, they were great for taking it to that next level after it had stagnated after Eisner. But then it came to a point where that strategy had reached its peak, and then something else was needed. Then someone else needed to come in. Instead, just like Eisner did before, Iger kept on way beyond his years, and he kept on doing what had worked before, but now conditions had changed, and he couldn't keep on doing that, and he did it anyway. And then you have a whole new kind of stagnation, only worse.
I'd almost argue to a point, Iger's success is all kind of false. If you think about it, it's almost built on like a foundation of sand, because Star Wars was already the biggest franchise in history. And as long as people knew that the original cast were going to be back, we all knew that The Force Awakens, it could have literally just been, the cast sitting there for 2 hours on screen, just going, hey kids. And it would have been the biggest movie ever, no matter what. Same thing with Marvel. He bought them when they were on the uptick. Right? Like, so yeah, he got into all these things when they were already like, instead of built like, because that's where Eisner failed, was he was trying to go like, look, we've got these properties that boys can get into. And the only one that hit was Pirates of the Caribbean. Right? So instead of kind of trying to reassess that and going, you know what, let's stop trying to keep up with this, and let's just stick with what we know and get back to the basics, which is what got him back to, good before. And then maybe try a few little things on the side to innovate a few things here and there. And you never know, we might get lucky and pull off another Roger Rabbit or something like that. No, instead, he just decided he's going to go spend a bunch of money on all these other franchises that were already successful. So I'd argue, Iger really did nothing to improve Disney at the end of the day. Writing a check didn't do anything, because any creativeness that he brought to the stage was all detrimental to those things that he brought.
Oh, absolutely. He killed the Disney legacy. Where's Donald? Where's Mickey?
And that on top of it all, right? Like, I mean, so there's so much here that, and I mean,
I can tell you, they're in the Marvel comics right now. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I mean, they ignored
insane,
the obvious right in front of their face. And I mean, I know it's easy for anybody to Monday quarterback or however you want to put it, but I just don't see where they saw that investing all this money into all these other franchises and IPs and stuff was going to get them out of the stagnation that Disney was in, because that's what had led them to the 80s. And I hate bringing it back around, but it's like, you learn nothing from your predecessor at all, Iger, right? Like, forget about the last 5-10 years of whatever he did that fucked things up. Let's look at the main point. Right? He saved Disney. We would not have Disney if it wasn't for him. It was on the brink of going away. They were going to piece it out, sell it out, gone. He came in and he had the vision to see through, and with the help of Katzenberg and these other guys on the side, they brought this company back by doing what Disney did best from the start, innovating and doing their animated features and getting the best of the best to work on these things. Right, like, because that was one thing Disney always meant, was quality, right? Because Walt didn't just fuck around. He made sure he had the best animators, was the head of the game when it came to special effects and how to do these things. Yeah, now here we are. This is what we got. This should be a license. This shouldn't be a fucking thing.
This is the first thing they have done with Donald Duck in... I don't even know. But
Did you see the hot ones with him on it? That was actually kind of cute. But like, other than that, like, yeah.
For those who are just watching or who are just listening, sorry, right now we're displaying the comic cover for the recent Marvel comic, What If Donald Duck Became the Mighty Thor?
You want to know why they're doing all this Donald Duck stuff? We're actually getting, this is their push for his anniversary.
Ah, that explains it.
Yeah. That's what's going on. This is the most we've got out of it, basically. This and the hot ones.
One with Uncle Scrooge and the Infinity Stone or something like that.
Well, yeah, that could just be coincidence. But yeah, I believe it's his anniversary. I can't remember if it's like his 80th or 90th or whatever anniversary. So yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we do have to round out here.
Yes, we do.
So, yeah.
And before we do go, I just want to say we have a fellow YouTuber who is in need. He's in help. He needs some help with some medical expenses. So if you can help out, we're going to drop the link in the chat here for you guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Loki just needs a helping hand with some medical expenses. If you got an extra buck or two, you could throw him. I'm sure he'd appreciate that. For those who know Stone Loki, he's a good buddy of the channel. So do help him out if you can. We'd appreciate it. So yeah. So other than that, Andre, I believe we have Toxic Femme later on tonight. I'm sure we have some videos in the works, like the Bob Iger one. Anything else to promote and plug in the meantime?
No, we have videos in the works, so check back next couple of days, and that should be forthcoming swiftly. I just have to get around to it.
All right. Yeah. See, now Donald Duck as the Hulk makes sense. But these should be a license thing, not like because we own them. You know, I might do some Mead Radio. You never know in Blazing. So keep an eye out for that. And with that, I think they're doing something is something going on over on Espanol right after this, or is that on Wednesdays?
That's on Wednesdays. I think maybe Polly has a stream going after this. So
that's what it
I don't
is,
know where to Polly. Yeah.
All right. So with that, take care of yourselves and each other.
And it's time for some koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koala, koala, koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koala, koala, koalas in the rain.